Hello, governor. I don't know why that was in my head for the last 3 minutes, but I had to say it. I had to open the stream that way. How's everybody doing? Welcome to TheoryCraft episode 27. It is Thursday. You all know what Thursday is for, but in particular, you all know what the second episode of every month is for. It's Community Replay Day, baby. But, you know, Neo did mention to me that he was going to watch the whole episode and critique every mistake I make. So for the sake of not making many errors, that's going to conclude today's episode. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week. Just kidding. I don't know how, you know, what's the proper amount of time comedically to leave it on the end screen? What's the proper amount of time? Like 2 minutes? Because then people are going to start leaving. Is it worth the viewership going down, plummeting, just to make a joke? Forever. Yeah, forever. 10 minutes, 3 hours. Yeah, what's the perfect, because 5 seconds, what I just did, a little bit too short. Best episode so far, I think. Yeah. You know, short and sweet, that's what they say, right? About 15 seconds. Yeah, 15 seconds, probably good. Just call it, bro. Yeah, just call it. This was a proper amount of time, you think? I think it was the proper amount of time. Is perfect medium in, people aren't going to be like, weird champ, what's going on? And, at least we go there. What about reaction on happy balance? Yeah, I thought Neil was going to do that, but there's still time. Still time yet to do that. 5 seconds was still shocking. Need a few more seconds to process. Okay, good. Okay. So, community replay. We, of course, didn't have an episode the first Thursday of this month because there was DreamHack, so this actually is the second episode. Next week will be Undead Day because I swapped Night Elf and Undead Day. There'll be some more replays. I'll probably do some 1-2-0 replays from DreamHack. Maybe even some happy replays from the War 3 Champions tournament that starts up. There'll be plenty of replays for Undead. There wasn't a ton last week, but 1 week can make a heck of a difference in the amount of content that we're able to put out replay-wise, so... Okay, a little bit sniffly today, a little bit brutal. As soon as I pressed go live, I started feeling a little bit better, but I was sneezing a lot. I was sneezing a whole bunch this morning. I don't know what it is, so forgive me if I'm sneezing or it's a little bit sniffly. I'll try to mute my mic if that does happen, but these things can't be controlled, and how much worse would I look if I was like, sorry guys, I'm not going to go live today. I'm sneezing. So, forgive me, but that's that. Let's go over to our notepads, and there's going to be a lot of notes to take today if you are one of the submittees. Yeah? Did I do it? Here we go. So, of course, today's episode title is Community Replay Review for August 2021. We got a bunch of submissions, but for sake of not having a 6-hour-long episode, we're going to do 5 today. These episodes tend to get longer and longer every single month, just because I tend to spend about 40 minutes on a 10-minute replay, which I suppose is my problem. But I appreciate all the submissions. We got a couple of replays that were a little bit too long, so if your replay's not in here and you submitted one, chances are it was just one of those few that were a little bit too long to fit in today's episode, but as always, just resubmit next month. If you forgot, you submit next month. We do one of these every single month. We might even start doing them more than that because it seems like people tend to really like these episodes. And if you've already submitted replays in the past, just send them again. We have the first replay from today. A friend of the stream, Break. He's, I think, submitted a replay every single month. Like, just send them in every month. Who cares? As long as they're not like, if you're maybe submit like an 8-minute replay every month, and you'll almost guarantee get in if it's like a shorter replay and there's something we can learn from it. Just send them in every month. I know there's Black Phoenix in the chat earlier who was like, damn, I didn't send a replay in. Send one in. As long as it's within reason, we'll go over it. Even if we've done your replays in the past, there's been people that have submitted like 4 or 5 months in a row, so definitely send them in. You might be asking yourself, how can I submit a replay, Carson? Well, you can email me at Carson@backtowarcraft. Oh, did I spell that right? Yeah, I'm good. Carson@backtowarcraft.com. You can also join our Discord, which is discord.backtowarcraft.com. You can type that into your web browser, discord.backtowarcraft.com, and it'll send you to a link so that you can join our Discord, and then you can join the TheoryCraft channel. Capital T, though. Capital T. You can join the TheoryCraft channel. And that's mostly where people submit replays and people talk about some strategy there, you know. It doesn't have to just be a place for replay submissions. You guys can ask me questions. I try to answer them, although I do tend to get a little bit behind on DMs and answering questions in that channel, and that's just sort of who I am as a person. Very very slow to respond to people. I think I have a text from my dad from about 3 weeks ago I gotta respond to. Always text your parents back, people. All right. Yeah, somebody asked what the races for today's replays are. We have, because in the past we've had all human players. I think we've had an episode of all orc players. Today we have 2 undeads, a human player, and 2 orcs. No night elves. Although last episode I think we had a few night elves. So where are you guys at? Where are you guys at? I know Grinchy submitted a replay last month. Grinchy, where are you at, man? But yeah, so 2 undeads, 2 orcs, and a human. And different matchups. 4 different matchups overall. 4 different matchups. We have 2 orc versus humans. Apparently the orc players are struggling against human. Pause the stream and text them back right now. Oh, I did text him back. Good. I remembered to. All right. Thank you, Ricky. There we go. Is your father an orc player too? I don't know what race he would play. I don't know what race he'd play. My brother played undead. And my dad played a warrior in Diablo 1. My mom played a rogue in Diablo 1. That's the only game I remember them playing, really. You put on the board what order you're going to review the replays in, for sure. Yeah. Matchup-wise, this will be the order. We're going to start with an undead versus undead. And then we'll go to an undead versus human. And then we'll go to a human versus night elf. And then we're going to go to an orc versus human. And then another orc versus human. That's going to be the matchups for today. That should be a capital U, because that's bothering me. That's going to be the order of matchups today. So we got 4 different matchups. Is 15 minutes too long for a replay? No, that's actually the perfect length. I tend to try to cut them off at around 25 minutes. Like when you get into like the 30, 35 minute, 40 minute range, although those games are probably great, it's just I can't do 10 45-minute replays. So 25 minutes tends to be where I get to the point where I'm like, okay, this might be getting a little bit long. Capital U from like, did you see that? Like, did you see that gaming? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, that's right. The best and worst team at the same time. That's good. Yeah, make me your sub alert, Ricky. All right. Are there any more questions? Any more information you guys want before we jump into the first replay? The first replay, as we just said, is going to be an undead versus undead. Most of the submissions today actually have quite nice write-ups. The last replay from today, Cool Breeze, I saw you in the chat, is actually really, really cool. I'm excited to do that replay, but that'll be the last replay for today because he submitted it. I do it literally in the order that people submit them, time-wise. So, not any more questions. We'll jump into the first replay. It will be an undead mirror on Last Refuge. This submitter is Break, an undead player, 1000 MMR. If you've watched these episodes before, you might remember Break. He's submitted a lot of replays, probably most of anyone, which respect. Now, Undead Mirror. Let's talk a little bit about Undead Mirror. Definitely not my best matchup. I know there's going to be some undead players in the chat. Definitely going to need you guys' help on this one. So let's see what happens. Just initial thoughts on Undead Mirror going into it. There's a lot of variation. Of course, Lich is pretty common. Crypt Lord expansion is very common. And then there's, of course, Death Knight versus all these things. A lot of different hero openers. And they sort of counter each other in different ways. How I tend to play Undead Mirror would be Lich with ghouls, because I like to get quick, lame wins. But the way I would recommend for people to play would be like Ted Fiends, because I think that's the best way to practice sort of the mid and late game. But we'll see what Break does. Bidu can help you out? Yeah, for sure. For sure. We got you back. Good. Yeah, Undead Mirror, definitely not my greatest matchup, for sure. And it tends to be a matchup where it can be a little bit difficult. We'll talk more about this when we get into the replay. It can be difficult to find advantages, I think, is the tricky thing about Undead Mirror. Because the bases are so hard to break, and you tend to have this see what I did there? You tend to have this issue as well in Bearmere and Night Elf, where there's like this stalemate. Both players are sitting on 50 supply, banking, waiting for the other player to break upkeep and eventually expand and stuff like that. And it tends to go into the super late game without there being a clear way of one player getting ahead or not. Whereas in a matchup like Orc Mirror, the reason why I really like Orc and Human Mirror is because it was more obvious in Orc Mirror than Human Mirror, is there's a clear way to win the game. There's a clear win condition. In Orc Mirror, if I get ahead in levels, if my Blade Master Harass, say it's Blade Shadow Mirror, if my Blade Master Harass goes better than yours and my Shadow Hunter gets level 3 before yours, I can just push and win the game. If we have a stalemate, I can go tier 3. If I get a tech advantage, I can just push and win the game because I have Orb of Lightning and you do not. In Human Mirror, I can get an expansion up at tier 2, and I can deny your expansion at tier 2. I have 2 base. We're both breakers. I just win the game. In Undead Mirror, standard Undead Mirror, that is, DK versus DK, and Bear Mirror, Demon Hunter versus Demon Hunter, it's a little bit more blurred exactly, like, how do I get over the finish line, right? Which is why Undead Mirror's been a matchup that I've always been a little bit confused by at times, but we'll see what we can help break with. Bidu APM hacker? Yeah, Bidu is an APM hacker. We'll see what we can help break with. We'll see what I notice. We'll see what you guys notice, and we'll learn a thing or two together, right? But first things first, let's see what the opening build orders are. Okay, so we'll jump into it. Loading it up. And here we go into replay 1, everybody. So, here is a break in the upper right of Last Refuge, and here is our opponent. We'll just call him our opponent, because I can't read his name. In the bottom left. Okay. Now, Break is going for what I call a Philbot Fiend opener, and I wouldn't actually... I mean, this is a build that's been played pretty commonly in Undead Mirror. I don't think this is the best option for an opening build order in Undead Mirror unless you're specifically countering something your opponent is doing. I think it's decent against Ted Fiend's Death Knight, which would be you go Fiends later and get your Death Knight earlier, whereas this build order is going to be you get 2 Fiends early and get your Death Knight later. Other build orders might be there's like Lich and Ghouls, or Cryptlord and Ghouls, Cryptlord and Fiends. There's a lot of different build orders. This build, I would say, it would only be good against fast DK slow Fiends. Because for one, if your opponent's going for a Cryptlord, with this build order, you can't actually get a Scout Acolyte to scout what your opponent's doing. We'll see what our opponent's doing in a second here. You don't scout with this build order, so we don't know, is he going to Cryptlord expand? Is he going Lich Ghouls with heavy pressure? We don't know, and we're left in the dark for a long time. We're left in the dark for so long that our opponent could actually get an expansion up, and it would take us a long time to scout it, and even longer to attempt to break it or counter expand. Which is why in Undead Mirror, at least nowadays, I would call this not the best opener. Instead, I would prefer, if you want to go for Death Knight, which I'd expect to see a Death Knight soon, I would prefer to see quick Death Knight, slow Fiends, Scout Acolyte, so that we can scout and we can see what our opponent is doing. Let's see what he's doing. And it looks like Ted Fiends, this is the build order I would recommend. You go for Altar, Zig, Crypt, Shop, Graveyard, Scout Acolyte. Although our opponent's not using a Scout Acolyte, which is kind of the whole point of the build order, but still it's all right. And then this also gives you the option, you can either creep initially, you could creep your green camp with skeletons from like these critters, or if we're on this side from this critter, and we can creep our green camp. But it also gives us the option, if our opponent happens to go for a Cryptlord expand, we can run across and we can harass it. If they happen to go for a Lich pressure, we can get an early Nerubian and we can defend it with our Death Knight already being out, whereas we have to defend without our hero being out if they go for Lich Ghoul pressure. So this leaves you susceptible to a couple of different openings. But in the case of our opponents going Ted Fiends and we're going Philbot Fiends, this is actually all right for us. But it's kind of a gamble. So I'd recommend this build order. most of all. But still, in this case, we're going to be totally fine. We're not going to lose because of build order in this game, for sure. Base build is pretty good. Base build's good. Shop is protected, which is very important. In Undead Mirror, I would say most of all, you don't want your shop to be exposed, because very often if you get behind in tech, it's a very common thing in Undead Mirror for both players to harass acolytes. The point of harassing acolytes, one, it's economic damage, which is always good, but on top of that, you're delaying your opponent's tech. Their tech to tier 2 and their eventual tech to tier 3. If you, as one player in Undead Mirror, can get very far ahead in tech, say you get a 40-second advantage in tier 3, you grab your orb, your opponent hasn't grabbed his orb yet, you can push in and maybe kill their shop, deny their orb of corruption, and win the game based off that. So having a safe shop like this, whereas our opponent, we notice if we were to push our opponent's base here and we're break, we could actually kill his shop if we had a tech advantage, denying his orb, and just winning off of pushing into his base, literally. Whereas this shop is very well placed because that's not a possibility. Our graveyard's also good for lumber. Our crypt, the most tanky building we have, is out front. I like this. This is a really good base build from Break. Ghoul's a little bit far, but these are small optimizations, not the biggest of deals. But of course, just a general rule of thumb, putting these ghouls on these trees, or these trees, just as close as possible, it's actually going to make quite a big difference in a lumber. We're going to end up with probably about 20 or 30 more lumber by the time we're teching. Which again, the tech timing in this matchup is very important. Having the quicker tech to tier 3 can sometimes decide games. Alright. One small, again, these are small errors. This is a small optimization error. Can anyone see what the error he made is? What's the mistake here? What's the mistake that Break has made? Very small, but it might make a difference. Especially seeing as though our opponent is harassing right now. Which this is the strength of Ted Fiends. If this was like a Crypt Lord, it would be very good for our opponent. Now, the small error we've made is, normally, if you have a Scout Acolyte, you can come over here and kill this critter, which he's done with his Fiend, but it's going to take a while to run over there. Whereas you could just summon Skellies here. Yeah, he didn't summon Skellies off Graveyard. Yeah, perfect match Warcraft. Yeah, and now he's going to be slower to creep this, or he's not going to have them at all, and our opponent's coming to harass us. So, yeah, it's just, if you're going to go for this build order, just always get your Skellies off your graveyard. Small optimization, again, just like the positioning of the ghouls, but these are the things that are easy to fix. Just these small little details, like there's nothing too difficult about putting our ghouls on close trees. There's nothing too difficult about summoning skeletons from the graveyard as opposed... In fact, killing the critter with our Fiend early, and then remembering where the critter is to summon our skeletons, is in fact more difficult than just summoning off the graveyard. So we're actually making it more difficult for ourselves, and we're not getting an advantage from it either way. So, small things to think about, and these are things we can do on every map as well. It's not map specific. And see, now we're actually starting this without Skellies. This is going to be very difficult, especially because our opponent's harassing us. Excuse me. We could get this coil stolen, but one thing that's important to remember in these sort of situations is it's not Holy Light coil, right? It's not an instantly cast spell. It's not like Nova, for instance. Coil has a travel distance, so if his Death Knight is right here, like it just was, and our Death Knight's right here, if we both coil at the same time, my coil is going to hit the Trapper. So in this case, even though our Death Knights are very close, Break, your Death Knight is always going to get the coil last hit. So there's a world in which if you don't coil, he's just going to coil and get it. But if you both coil right now, you are 100% going to get it because your Death Knight is actually closer, which is something worth thinking about when you're playing Death Knight and you're being harassed by a Death Knight, or when you're playing Lich and you're being harassed by a Death Knight. You have little more wiggle room when you're the Lich player and you're being harassed by a Death Knight, because of course you have Nova to instantly cast. So this is a position where where your Death Knight is in relation to the creeps is actually a very big deal. So in this case, there should be no chance for him to get this Trapper. We actually still get it. No coil used there. The coil was actually used on the Fiend. The reason the coil had to be used on the Fiend is just simply because we don't have skeletons, so the Fiends were attacking, or the creeps were attacking our Fiend. So yeah, the coil had to be used defensively there. This is all just because we didn't get skellies from the graveyard. Not a huge deal, but it, you know, it could end up being a big deal later on. See, even 2 coils already used. This just simply because we didn't have skeletons early. See, and now this is a position where our Death Knight, if it's right here, and his Death Knight's way far back, 0% chance he gets a coil last hit, assuming we wait for the cooldown of our coil. These are the details we need to think about when we're being harassed, right? But in this case, oh my god, he actually got it. Okay. That was quite the coil from our opponent. Nevertheless, not the end of the world. See, and at this stage, another small optimization, if these ghouls were harvesting from these trees the entire time, we probably would have teched about 10 seconds ago. Maybe 7 seconds, 8 seconds, whatever. But we would have already been teching most definitely. And we can see our opponent is teching, but that's just because of the build order. We see even our opponent here could have been mining off these trees as well. Could have been mining off these trees. And his tech would have been even more ahead, but that's just the build order that he's doing. He gets a quicker tech because he has an earlier 3rd ghoul. And he also doesn't invest as much lumber into Fiends, and he can also tech on 1 Ziggurat if he wants to with this build order. So there's a lot of things that the Ted Fiends build order, aka the build order our opponent did, minus not having a Scout Acolyte, is better for the tech timing. Okay, now we can just continue to creep. Of course, you just want to get Death Knight level 3. Ideally, you want Death Knight level 3 before your Lich comes out, so just continue to creep here is great. This is the ideal next camp because we don't have a lot of skellies. It's all good. Now, after our tech is done, or tech is started, rather, we're going to want to get a 3rd ghoul on lumber. We're going to get a 3rd fiend instead. There's, you know, arguments to be made for either or, but the big strength of this build is the initial 2 fiends early on, and then after that, we really want to get that 3rd ghoul online, because they're also going to be lacking lumber later on. So I'd say 3rd ghoul, and then you can go into more fiends afterwards. That's good. It seems like he's going to go back and creep the shop, which I think is a fine build order. Or creep route, rather. Unfortunately, I don't think the shop actually gives you level 3 now because you got that 1 ogre stolen. But it will be very close. It'll be very close. We'll see. This Zig might be a little bit annoying later on. We could always put it right here. I think you can fit a Zig right here. Always putting them in the back is nice because our base might get a little bit clunky later on, and we'd like to be able to turtle in our base, especially in this matchup. Again, just not the cleanest of creeping, but it's not going to be the end of the world. The thing that matters about using all these coils early on is once we end up both getting level 3 Death Knight, should have summoned Skellies in the graveyard again in passing, yeah, for sure. But the thing that's going to hurt, it's not that like we're going to lose these fiends. If we get Creepjack, we most likely wouldn't lose these fiends. It's that we're going to have very low mana. Once we hit tier 2, we can see our opponent has actually full mana and full health fiends, just because he's crept a little bit cleaner. Whereas we have 2 very low HP fiends, low HP Death Knight, and only 1 coil left. So if we both hit level 3, we both start our Lich and want to run across the map to sort of fight over maybe, say, this shop. He's always going to win this fight because he has more mana. And he also has the ability to pressure you off camps early tier 2 when you both hit level 3. Just because his creeping's been cleaner than yours. So trying to not use too many coils in the early game might not seem like that big of a deal. Just like it might not seem like a big deal to force your opponent to use a lot of coils in the early game, but it actually helps your mid game, which is a very common theme in Orc against Undead from the Orc's perspective. If you're playing against Pally Rifles as an Undead or an Orc player and you're trying to force Holy Lights, because you're never going to get a rifle kill if you're against Pally Rifles, but what you can do is force mana off the Paladin. These are very important things, not because you're ever going to kill these fiends, like I said, without a Lich here, but because you're going to be able to win fights for camps later on. And yeah, that would have been, unfortunately, level 3 if we were to have gotten that Ogre early on. Our opponent's being aggressive, which I wouldn't recommend, but that's alright. There's a world in which you're, like, down here or something, so maybe it's not a bad push.
A player's forces are under attack.
And see, there's, you know, we could have maybe had level 3 by now. We also could add more coils, so now we're going to lose a Fiend. Maybe even 2 Fiends. And in a lot of games, that's actually game over. And, you know, this is just because of very small mistakes. We used 2 coils early on because we didn't get skeletons to initially creep this camp. We then enabled him to actually get a last hit he had no business getting because his Death Knight positioning wasn't actually the best. So we could have denied that last hit on the Ogre, giving ourselves level 3. We could have saved more coils by getting skeletons earlier, and we could have crept this a little bit cleaner. These are all just small things that would have saved both these Fiends right here. And we would have also had a level advantage, because we would have been level 3, and he would have minus that whatever amount of experience from those 2 Fiends. We would have been, you know, maybe 100, 120 experience ahead here. This might have been a Panic Spirit Tower, but, you know, this Nerubian and this Halls of the Dead is going to be plenty. The Spirit Tower, probably not going to be too helpful for the whole game. So not really needed, but it might have been a little bit of a panic. Spirit Tower when he was pushing you and you lost a couple of Fiends. Totally get it. Now, as I said, the main priority in Undead Mirror should be getting to tier 3 as early as possible. More than probably any matchup. There's other matchups where you definitely want to get tier 3, but you still want to, you know, get a little bit of a bigger army, like around the tier 2 timing, for instance, against human. So, like, right here, I would say, like, if you didn't get the Spirit Tower, you would have been able to go to tier 3 much earlier. Even if you delay the Slaughterhouse just to get tier 3 even quicker, it's still totally fine. But at this stage, definitely go in tier 3 as soon as you have the lumber to do so. Would be perfect. So just, you know, this has all been very small things so far, right? Like, it's been very small errors, but they add up. They add up. They add up. The little tiny optimizations, like our ghouls are out of position, so his tech is going to be ahead by 20, 30 seconds. That might enable him to win a fight and kill a couple of Fiends. Small things, they add up. So just trying to optimize the first 5 minutes of the game. I tell this to people I coach all the time. Just play against the computer on, you know, one map, whatever, because this all transfers over to every map, and just try to have the perfect 5-minute opening before you ever are going to see your opponent in most cases. Just the perfect 5 minutes. Creep everything perfectly, build your base perfectly, you know, tech on time, have the right amount of units, have your ghouls in the right position, just the first 5 minutes, and then if the first 5 minutes are very well optimized, the rest of the game is going to be much easier. In the case of this game, our tier 3 would have been much earlier. We would have had more mana, level 3 Death Knight, and 2 more Fiends already. Just from little tiny optimizations. That's the main thing I would recommend here, and I tell that to so many people. Just the first 5 minutes, that's what it's all about. Especially with Undead. Undead is such a precise race on one base. If you're expanding with Cripplord or Lich, it becomes a little less precise because macro games tend to be sloppy. But on one base, playing Death Knight first, it is a very precise race. One slight error here at the start of the fight and the middle of the fight. Can anyone point out what the error in not overall micro was, but just one general rule of thumb in Undead Mirror fights? Can anyone see what happened here? Anyone? Not positioning, not focus fire targets, there's just one general thing. I wouldn't say the focus fire is too important. I would say more so just getting damage on. Of course, you do want to focus fire in these fights, but good, good. You need to hurt Fiends by 50% and then Nova them. Yeah, so the idea, again, coming back to, I know we're focusing a lot on the details, but this game, it's going to go on a little while longer, but it's all coming down to these first 10 minutes, right? It's all coming down to it. Death Knight not attacking is somewhat important, but not the end of the world. So coming back to sort of this, how we use our spells. Again, Coil has travel distance. Nova is pretty much instant cast, right? So if he wants to coil this Fiend, he would be able to save it right now, but it would still take whoop, that much time to... He would have to cast it. He'd have to raise his arm up and do the animation, right? And then it would have to do the animation, then boop, it would hit the Fiend. in that time, if this fiend is this low and you Nova it while all that's happening, he still casts the coil, wastes the 75 mana, and you get the fiend kill. So you were using Novas on fiends that you wanted to focus with the idea of, and this totally makes sense, you want to slow the fiend down so that you can focus it. So you Nova this fiend, right? Saying these are all high health or something. You Nova this fiend, it slows it down, you can continue to focus it. But really what we want to do is we want to focus a fiend down to about, 200 health, right? Maybe a little bit higher than this fiend is. And then when he's going for a coil, that's when we want to use our Novas. So Nova should always be used at this stage of the game, at least. Later on it can be used differently, but at this stage of the game, when there's very few units, always be used to secure fiend kills and to force him to use extra mana in these situations. This is just a small detail. Honestly, if you nail this down in the fights, you don't have to focus on too many other things micro-wise. Because you're the one securing kills because you have the good Nova timing, and as long as you're coiling your fiends and you're getting clutch Nova timings and securing fiend kills, the rest of the micro doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's getting slightly more efficient fiend movement and damage. It doesn't matter if his Death Knight is getting slightly more damage in, because you're the one actually securing kills. Until you get to the very high levels, then those things are going to matter. Then it's going to matter that he actually has an extra fiend here and more mana on his Death Knight. It's going to matter that your Lich is a little bit earlier. But in this case, it's just going to matter that I killed some fiends and he did not. Right? And we definitely could have killed some fiends here. We might still be able to kill one. We'll see. See? Perfect example. If that was a Holy Light, he would have actually saved that fiend. And now he miscoils, and look how it snowballs. He miscoils, now his coil's on cooldown, he actually loses 2 fiends. So we equalize here. We've both lost 2 fiends here. Although we've, used a Potion of Invulnerability and now a Town Portal. Won't focus too much. There was some plays to be made to maybe not have to use that Potion of Invulnerability or that Town Portal, but still, not the end of the world, because we don't want to focus too much on the micro. I'd say that's just a very, sort of a good place to start micro-wise that I think is actually very important with the Nova timing. And again, tier 3 should be the main priority. Is our opponent going tier 3? No. So this is a situation where we could be very far ahead in tier 3. Now we start it, which is great. As soon as you remembered it, I think it was just because we were in the fight that you were forgetting about it. As soon as you remembered it, we started attacking right away, which is good. That's the right idea. But imagine if we teched immediately when we could have. We would have been very close to tier 3 right now. And then what I said at the beginning of the game, we have Orb, he does not. We have a Tri-Hero, he does not, right? We'll have a Dark Ranger, we'll have Orb. We'll have this pretty much the same armies. We both killed 2 fiends. We push into his base. He's not tier 3 yet. We kill his shop, denying his Orb. We have Orb and Tri-Hero. He doesn't have even a shop to buy potions or rods or whatever. We win the game right there. We win the game right there. Does he have 4 on gold? His Acolyte is out here. Maybe attempting to build another Zig. I'm not sure. Let's see.
A player's forces are under attack.
Keeps creeping. His Lich is a little bit late. At this stage, this is sort of when we get into creeping wars. We've had our early level 3 exchange that I mentioned, which is all, how many coils you use in the early game, who has the quicker level 3, who has the better items, who has the higher fiend count, who has more charges on their Rod or Necromancy. That all is what this fight comes down to. And we end up both killing 2 fiends, so we're relatively even in this game. So now we just creep, we try to get a Lich to level 3, and we of course wait for tier 3.
A player's forces are under attack.
Killing Shop also denies Destros for sure, and statues. It denies a lot of stuff. It's very, very good, which is why, again, this shop positioning is a huge mistake from our opponent. Even if it was here, it would be much, much better, right? Which it could have been. Of course, it couldn't have been here because the trees were here before, but yeah, this is actually a big error. A very big error. Okay, gonna creep the shop. This is a great choice if we can snag away the Ogre Magi. Frost Armor. What's your guys' opinion on Frost Armor in Undead Mirror? What's your guys' opinion on it? I know that it isn't like unheard of to go Frost Armor in Undead Mirror. I know we see it. I'm not sure what Happy goes. I think Happy goes Dark Ritual. I think most of the top Undeads still go Dark Ritual. We have seen it before, though. So I'm not sure how common it is. I'm not sure if it is the best choice. I still go Dark Ritual, but maybe I'm hanging on to sort of old meta. In the late game, Frost Armor is useless. Yeah, so maybe early a level 2 Lich, it is alright. Definitely on level 4, you should get Dark Ritual. And definitely with solo Lich, if you're going Lich first, into Death Knight later, definitely go Dark Ritual. But in this case, definitely wouldn't call it a mistake. Happy goes Dark Ritual? Yeah. I think there's viability to both. Maybe if your Death Knight's a little bit low, you can go Frost Armor. If you have opportunity to fight early on, before there's Destroyers, maybe you can go Frost Armor. Once he didn't, he lost versus X-Lord? Right, okay. Yeah, like, I would definitely recommend Dark Ritual. But I won't say Frost Armor is, like, terrible, right? I think there's some room to experiment with it. So let's not call it a mistake, so to speak. But definitely go one or the other with a purpose. And if you don't have a reason for going Frost Armor, I would say definitely go Dark Ritual 100% of the time. But if you have a reason for going Frost Armor, it's not... You know, it's not as though you should never go Frost Armor, I think is the best way to describe that. And you can deny Fiends, which is kind of cool. Oh, Invuln Pot. Oh, get it. Okay, good. A lot of Fiends from our opponent. Holy hell. Like, even seeing this right now, we've, of course, seen our opponent's base, but even seeing this now... Like, I would just assume that he's still on tier 2. He's going tier 3 now, but, like, what's his supply? 54 supply. So our opponent's broken upkeep right away. And, of course, we can tell our opponent's broken upkeep. Let's do some math. Let's do some math, right? So we'll go back and forth. We'll go back and forth. This is just a basic... Like, looking at this, I know that he's broken upkeep. But even if not, you can too. So he's got 5 Akos. Right? He's got 3 Ghouls. He's got 2 heroes. 2 heroes. So already we know that is 5, 11, 16 supply. We know our opponent's at 16 supply. Let's look. We know he's got 2 statues by default. He's going to have 2 statues. Right? So what was that? 16. He's at 22 supply right now. Right? Correct me if my math is wrong. So we can say 22 supply by default. How many Fiends does he have? I hope I'm right about this. Because if not, it'll be a little bit... Oh, well. Let's see. How many Fiends has he got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 21. What was he at before? What was he at before? So he's got 7 Fiends. Let's do the math again. Let's do the math again. So 5 Akos is 5. And 3 Ghouls is 6. 2 Heroes is 10. 2 Statues is 6. 7 Fiends is 21. So this isn't in and of itself going to be above 50 supply, but, so it's 11, 21, 27, 48. So it's 48 supply right now. What we see in front of us is literally 48 supply, and then he's got 6 supply in production. But what this means is he can't get a 3rd hero. He can't get a 3rd hero. He can't get a 3rd hero. He can't get a 3rd statue for Destroyers. And it also means that, like, he's probably staying on tier 2 for quite a while because he can't get these things on tier 3. Right? So this is a very unorthodox number of Fiends. Like, the 7 Fiends is a ton at this stage in the game. What's up, Kira? How's it going? This is a ton of Fiends. I believe I did that. This should be 48, right? This should equal 48 supply, right? So this means he's got a ton of Fiends. So it means he's either planning to break upkeep right away, or he's planning to stay on tier 2 for a very long time, just because he's got this number of Fiends. Because everything else is standard, right? You're always going to have 5 Acolytes, 3 Ghouls, you're going to have 2 Heroes, you're going to have 2 Statues. But having 7 Fiends puts you at a position where you either have to break upkeep, or you're tier 2 expanding. You're doing something weird if you have this amount of Fiends at this stage in the game. like before your tier 3 sort of thing. So this is just very weird, and I would expect like my opponent is doing something weird or breaking upkeep right away, which would mean I should just stay more passive because he's breaking upkeep right away. He's going to want to fight, right? That's at least what I see initially when I see this amount of fiends. Very, very strange. And we probably will see a statue in a fiend in production. So he's broken upkeep right away. But even if he hadn't, when he gets tier 3, he's going to have to build this statue, and he's going to have to get a 3rd hero, which is going to put him at 56 supply right away. Which would say to me, as break, like, okay, I'm chilling. As long as I don't break upkeep and I make sure he doesn't have an expansion, I'm chilling because he's getting less gold than me. So all I have to do is just be happy to creep this camp, maybe snag a red. And as long as he's not creeping a ton more than me, getting an expansion, winning fights time and time again, I'm just ahead by default because he's already essentially broken upkeep. And even if he hasn't broke upkeep, he's not going to have a 3rd hero. So I think that TP was pretty good, actually. But we lost a couple of fiends. So we're slowly kind of getting further behind, but still a good TP. Still a good TP. This is also a good move from our opponent, though, in playing aggressive. Because he's breaking upkeep and he's playing aggressive, he's going to do what I said we can't allow our opponent to do, which is just creep everything in our faces, right? Look how many fiends this is. 8 fiends. So this stage, we know it's 8 fiends and a 3rd statue. We know this is 54 supply because we just did the math. But I mean, look at it. You definitely know your opponent's broken upkeep if this is walking towards you, right? Like you definitely know. Whereas if it's about 5 fiends, that's around the number where they're trying to play the clean tier 3 50 supply army, just like Break is. 5 fiends. See. He's going for 6 fiends and destroyer form. So I'd definitely be trying to play the tier 3 advantage. Getting Lich level 3 before getting your 3rd hero never hurts, but we're creeping with our Death Knight right now. But definitely getting a 3rd hero. It doesn't have to be a Dark Ranger. I mean, Dark Ranger is definitely the best. Silence, Black Arrow, it's all very good. You get skeletons for your Lich that you can then Dark Ritual if you don't go Frost Armor. A lot of reasons to go Dark Ranger. But, I mean, you could go Dreadlord, you can go Crypt Lord. See people go Naga sometimes, which is a little bit wackier. But just getting a 3rd hero, no matter what the 3rd hero is, they're all very impactful. Sleep is good in this matchup. Impale is good in this matchup. Silence and Black Arrow are particularly good in this matchup. So getting a 3rd hero and, leveraging the tier 3 advantage that we're going to have, not anymore, but I think we did have for a little while, or we definitely should have because our opponent, already broke upkeep. Definitely using that with the 3rd hero, the earlier orb, all that stuff, to try to take a good fight would be nice. Exlord used Naga as 2nd hero, if I'm not mistaken. You're absolutely correct. Yeah, he did. Third hero with 1,000 MMR is hard to micro, though, for sure. But how do you get practice in it if you never try? And the cool thing about getting maybe a Dark Ranger is you don't even have to necessarily use Silence. Just get Black Arrow first and just put it on and just get used to having that in your army. And then eventually, you'll level up to level 2 Silence. Even if you get 1 Silence at the start of the fight, like say you guys both meet in the middle of the map, you just initially just say, okay, I'm going to take my Dark Ranger, I'm going to silence his DK. That's all I'm going to do with my Dark Ranger for the entire fight. For the rest of it, I'm just going to keep Black Arrow on autocast. So just do 1 silence when you get into a fight, and then forget about the Dark Ranger, and then work from there. But if you never pick up a 3rd hero because you're uncomfortable with it, you're never going to start that initial practice of how do I mic my Dark Ranger, how do I micro against Dark Ranger, because it's good to do things to learn how to play against them as well, not just learn how to play them yourself. There's a lot of good things that come with stepping out of your comfort zone if that is playing 3 heroes. So our opponent is very fiend heavy. This is kind of crazy. Look at all these fiends. This is 9 fiends. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 10 fiends. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy.
A player's forces are under attack.
But because our opponent broke upkeep earlier, in theory, we should be able to pull ahead in supply. We should be able to. if we were to bank a little while, but Break here has actually broken upkeep quite early himself. I wouldn't call that necessary because, again, Undead Mirror, the reason why I said this matchup's a little bit confusing for me. Is it okay to upgrade Fiends before breaking upkeep? Yeah, that's the point I was just going to actually touch on. That's a great point. Because Undead Mirror, it's so hard to break our opponent's base, which is why it's very stalematey, which is why it's very confusing at times, which is why it's hard to get advantages in Death Knight versus Death Knight. Like, if our opponent, even though he's got 10 Fiends and we've only got, let's say we only have 5, right? Let's say we have 5 Fiends and we also have a Dark Ranger, just a standard 50 supply tier 3 army. Tri-hero, 5 Fiends, 2 statues, maybe a 3rd statue with Destroyer Farm on the way. Standard. He's got 10 Fiends, no 3rd hero. He's got what he has right now, right? And he pushes into our base, we're actually going to win that fight. As long as our positioning is good, which is going to be tough in this base build, which is why I think these Ziggurats could be, like, further back. We're still going to win. Even though he's got double our Fiend counts, the Undead base is so strong. We have a shop, we have a tower. Even if we don't have a tower, we have Black Citadel and Nerubian. We can pull our 3 ghouls, which our opponent doesn't have. We have quicker production, so we break upkeep as they're pushing, and then we have an Abomination and a Fiend out by the time the fight is, concluding, which is really nice. There's a lot of things. So, knowing that our opponent has broken upkeep, we can actually just chill on 50 supply, and we know that our opponent's going to have a very difficult time breaking our base in this position. So that's why I say, as long as our opponent isn't stealing all of our creep camps away, like creeping this in our face, and then creeping this in our face, and then taking both reds, as long as they're not doing that, and as long as they're not expanding, we can just chill being under 50 supply. What can we do when we're under 50 supply? To touch on Verbrecker's point in the chat, we can get an upgrade advantage, which we already have 2-0 Fiends. He's got 1-0, but we can stay below 50 supply and just work on getting 3-0 Fiends, 3-1 Fiends, right? Work on just creeping. And then eventually, when we've banked a little bit more than our opponent banked, we can break upkeep, and we actually get a supply advantage. Despite being down in supply for quite a while, the fact that we don't break as early as our opponent actually puts us ahead in supply in the long run. And you're always going to get to the long run because, again, we've already established in most cases, it's going to be very difficult for our opponents to actually kill us in our base.
A player's forces are under attack.
Which is why, again, this is a little bit confusing, but this is why this matchup's difficult, because how do you get an advantage if you can't attack your opponent's base? We're noticing now the shop is exposed, but this right now is probably the exact opposite of what we want to do, because we know our opponent has more stuff than us. We've seen that time and time again. Every time we've gone to our fight, our opponents had more Fiends than us, and we knew our opponent broke upkeep very early. We had to TP out earlier, right? So this is definitely not a position that we want to be fighting in. I would rather just go back and creep, get a 3rd hero, go back, creep, get upgrades. Even if we're breaking upkeep, just go back and creep, because we still need to get, we need to even up the supply as much as possible. Yeah, and less Fiends is easier to micro, for sure. Making the fights easier on ourselves because we have better upgrades, but less Fiends, for sure, for sure. So far, a nice fight for us. We've actually killed 2 Fiends and not lost any, if I'm seeing this correctly. We have an Onk, don't gotta worry about that, although our Death Knight being dead does kind of hurt our Fiends. We dove a little bit for the Death Knight, which is going to sort of snowball this fight in the other direction. I would say it would have been decent to kill those 2 Fiends and TP out immediately. I think we talked about this a lot last community replay review, sort of not feeling the need to fight until the bitter end. Just fighting until we kill a couple of units and then getting out of the fight can be really good. And this is a perfect example of we kill those 2 Fiends initially. We're forced into the potion of invulnerability, that's fine. We coil 1 low Fiend, and then we just TP out before losing anything. And this is how you can slowly pull ahead in matchups where it's hard to push your opponent's base. You just take small fights, kill a couple of Fiends, and then get out. Still, I wouldn't say this attack into the main base was warranted overall. But our opponent defends, and he wins the fight, as he should, because we're pushing into his base in Undead Mirror. And unless we're significantly ahead, it's difficult to do that. So at this stage, there's a couple things missing. One, of course, would be the Dark Ranger, but assuming there's no Dark Ranger, what is sort of a big thing that we might see if this was like a top pro level game? What would we be seeing from both players around this stage? What do you guys think? Maybe even a little bit earlier than this. What would we be seeing? Any ideas? Any ideas? We'd be seeing tier 3 Destros. So Destro Mirror is a little bit something of the past. It was I kind of did like Destro Mirror though. I thought it was dope. Mass Destros. Yeah, Banshee tech. Perfect. Beautiful. Banshee tech. Why Banshees, you might ask? Well, Banshees, of course, against the Nova of the Lich. The Lich is the hard carry in these fights. The higher the Lich level, like having level 5 Lich is even more important than having level 5 Death Knight, right? If you could have level 3 DK and level 5 Lich, that's what you'd want in Undead Mirror. Banshees obviously counter that. Curse is very good because you can't go too Destro heavy if you're Fiend heavy. And the Fiends, the Fiends counter the Destros died, the Curse is very good. But most of all, it's pretty much just against the Nova, you want Banshee tech, right? So you do want to eventually go into Banshees in a lot of cases. Want to do Banshees are useless, you want 3 or more and they die to Nova? Yeah, for sure. You do want a few. I'm not sure if most Undeads go 2 Temple or 1 Temple, but definitely at this stage in a top level game, we'd most likely see both players put, like, that's why I even checked this, even though I knew the shop died. That's why I checked this, because I was like, oh, our opponent's going to Banshee tech. That's what I was assuming, because this would be such a standard timing to go into Banshees, because we're both going to go back to creeping. We're expanding, but of course this isn't the most typical time to expand, because we've just lost 2 fights back to back. Maybe even 3 fights back-to-back. So expanding, although I do recommend taking risks when we're behind to try to get further ahead, I think that's a great general rule of thumb in RTS games. But here, I think better to just, again, go back to the initial idea of just playing passive, creeping, maybe banking below upkeep if possible, although right now we're already above upkeep and not producing anything, so that's all right. Going into Banshees, just creeping and not expanding, not taking any risks. And just playing more passive overall, really. We've been very fight-hungry this game, it seems. We've really wanted to fight a lot. When in reality, our opponent gave us a win condition. Our opponent broke upkeep right away. He gave us the opportunity to be ahead just by default. Just by creeping, we could have been ahead in this game. But we chose to sort of fight into our opponent's strength, which was the fact that they had just more stuff than us throughout the whole game.
The town is under siege.
So I think it's really about sort of understanding what advantage we have at what stage in the game and taking advantage of that, which is kind of a high-level concept in a way. But that's sort of what's been going wrong overall, except for, those details that we pointed out in the early game. Those, of course, can help every stage of the game. But, just overall knowing, in what aspect of the game am I ahead? Am I ahead economically? Am I ahead in supply? Am I ahead in hero levels? Do I have more map control? Right? Did my opponent invest in a bunch of towers? In which case, probably I don't want to push into his towers. Instead, I want to just creep the map because he's going to have a smaller army. Realizing stuff like this, and then playing into that advantage is really important. Little fat finger on the push and vulnerability, not a big deal. Again, pushing into the base, but I think this is a better time to push because this is very common where we're creeping our opponent's side of the map and we're assuming they're creeping our side of the map. We go around, try to creep stuff. We realize they've already crept, so what do? Well, we know that they're getting value on our side, so force them to Town Portal so that they TP back, and then they're like, oh shit, there's no creeps here for me either. Excuse me. So you're sort of leveling the playing field because, like, we don't know. Let's go to Break's Vision. Like, our opponent could be creeping, like, this red here. He could be creeping this corner. He could be getting more value. Like, maybe he's taking, like, this camp or something because this wasn't crept by us previously. So pushing into his base, not to actually fight, but just to force our opponent to Town Portal is really, really good. Because then we know for a fact that he's not going to be able to creep these away from us. And then we're just both on the same side of the map. So this push here is actually very good by Break. This is very good. Because or else, what would we do? We could maybe creep this, but we're assuming right now this has already been crept by our opponent. It should have been. But definitely just either town portaling away right away or running away would be the best choice. Just counter TPing. Because we don't want to fight still. The point of this push is not to fight. Our opponent got some good items as well. And, you know, Xlord has said this. When I interviewed him, I think he said this, or maybe it was a different time. But Undead Mirror can really come down to the items as well at the higher levels. So, oh, you both have really good Lich items, though, so... This is fair. This is fair. You both have extremely strong Liches. That's awesome. Just need a Potion of Invulnerability, which you, of course, used by accident earlier. Not the end of the world. Yeah, you guys both got some crazy Lich items. I'm not going to lie. Again, our opponent's going to have the supply advantage because we've lost a few more units. We've had a town portal, I think, 1 extra time, and he canceled our expansion, so not taking this fight is the best bet right here. Hey, you know, there's still red camps on the map, right? There's still those corner camps. Undead creeps very fast, very efficiently, so you don't have to be afraid to go creep these camps. You don't have to be afraid to go creep a red camp. So there's definitely more things to be doing than to push right now, but... What league is this play? 1,000 MMR. I'm not sure what War 3 Champions League that would be. Maybe somebody knows. A-bombs and Undead Mirror are useless? I think adding 1 in when you break upkeep is pretty common. I think that's pretty common. Oh, but this guy actually got... Okay, this is going to be a PSA for a second. Disease Cloud does not actually work against undead units, so it doesn't work in Undead Mirror. It only works against Night Elf units, human units, mercenaries, orc units. It doesn't work against other undead units, so even it won't work on your opponent. So Disease Cloud, don't get it in Undead Mirror unless your opponent for some reason is going Tavern Heroes with mass mercenaries. That's the only time. Disease Cloud is not doesn't do anything to undead units. Yeah? Wouldn't Banshees be good? Yeah, I would definitely say Banshees would be good here. So, our opponent's about to push us. We don't know it, but we're sort of playing defensively, which this is a very common situation to be in. And in the meantime, we're actually scouting for an expansion, which this is great. This is great from Break. He's realizing that he's behind. He's realizing his opponent might be trying to push ahead with an expansion, so he's scouting while playing a bit passive in his base. This is great. And if, you know, our opponent doesn't push us, maybe we go creep this red and then town portal away, something like that. Are all replays today 1,000 MMR? No, this is actually the lowest MMR replay from today, I believe. So we got a 1,600, 1,400, 1,300, a few different MMRs today. The only downside of this is because of the placement of our ziggurats. Like, again, I mentioned earlier, we could have put one ziggurat here, one ziggurat here. I think one fits here. One might even fit here, but more in the back of our base. And this would have given us, because our base build was so beautiful in the early game, until these 3 ziggurats, our base build was really nice. The shop was defensive, the graveyard was close to the trees, the slaughterhouse is safe, the crypt, the tankiest buildings up in the front defending, right? The Nerubian is as aggro as it could be. But now it's difficult to actually fight in this base, because how are we going to position ourselves? The best place to position ourselves would be like right here when we get pushed. But then we're not close to the shop. But still, yeah, we should be, you know, trying to maybe move into this direction. If we're trying to fight like here, it's going to get really clunky really fast to fight in this base, just because these ziggurats make it a little bit difficult to move around. Which is something we have to be thinking about, because we want our base in Undead Mirror to be a position in which our opponent cannot actually push. Because that enables us to sit on 50 supply and bank for long periods of time, which is a really common way to get far ahead in Undead Mirror if our opponent breaks upkeep early. This gets a little bit complicated, but of course, the general rule of thumb, make your base a place where you actually want to fight in it. Right? It's like make your home a place where you want to spend time, whatever that saying is, you know? So right now, backing away. Remember, we have a Spirit Tower, we have another Nerubian, we have ghouls we could pull, we have, you know, skeletons we could use Rod of Necromancy on, we could buy mana pots, heal scrolls, a lot of stuff we could use to our advantage. Right now, we're essentially only using one of those things, which is the Black Citadel. So we definitely want to get into a more defensive position here. Pull the boys. You know, maybe buy a heal scroll. And, you know, all hands on deck here sort of deal. That was a great Nova from our opponent. See, Destroyer webbed a little bit out of position, which is why keeping Destroyers far forward is always a little bit tricky, but you got to avoid it. Yeah, Undead's just hard. Undead's a hard race. The details are very important, and that is one of the details. The upgrade's 2-0 versus 2-1. This is something we definitely could have pulled ahead in this game if we had stayed on 50 supply a little bit longer. Yeah, this is definitely a winnable fight if we used our base to our full advantage, but it wasn't easy because we had lost a lot of units up to this point. Let's just take account. We lost 2 Fiends here earlier, which we then traded out in his base, but then we lost a Statue and a Destroyer here. We had a Town Portal out at the shop here earlier, and we lost a Fiend. We pushed into his base and lost about 4 Fiends and a Town Portal. I believe we lost 1 Fiend here when we pushed and killed the Altar. So slowly but surely, we got our expansion canceled at one point. Slowly but surely, our opponent's been getting more value, which is, you know, sometimes what it comes down to, and now our opponent's actually quite far ahead in supply. We do have, our opponent even has a big bank as well. So we had an opportunity to hold here, but our opponent's been getting slowly but surely further ahead, and this just comes down to us being a little bit too aggressive at a lot of stages of this game when our opponent had already broken upkeep, right? That's really what this comes down to. Yeah, we could have used more coils, right? We could have done a lot of things here to ensure this fight, but, you know, micro's not always the number one thing we should focus on, right? And that's going to be that. GG. Alright, cool. Thanks for the submission break. I hope that was able to help somewhat. Like I said, though, Undead Mirror, kind of a tricky matchup. The reason why it's tricky is it's just like that. Like, how do you get ahead? How do you get ahead if you don't push? And that was sort of what we were seeing from you. Like, you were trying to look for ways to end the game, win fights, but, like, sometimes it's better just to creep the whole map and then to sit in your base on 50 supply. Sometimes that's just the best play, and that's the thing about Undead Mirror that makes it a little bit confusing. Sometimes you just gotta sit in your base and just chill. Right? Sometimes you just gotta sit in your base and chill. Alright, gonna take a 2-minute break. I gotta go to the bathroom, and we'll be right back with replay number 2, which is gonna be our good friend who's in the chat right now, Swerte. Is that how you pronounce it? S-W-E-R-T-E? That's gonna be replay number 2. We'll be right back. Alright, we're back. So, the next replay is going to also be an Undead replay. A little bit higher MMR, though. It's going to be 1600 MMR. It's going to be a submission from Swerte, who's an Undead player. He's going to be playing as Human on Concealed Hill. And he says, that's how I mostly lose against Human as an Undead. Happy for some advice playing standard DK Fiends, for sure. So this is probably going to be... It might be one base from the Human, but most likely what I'd expect is a Ted Fiends opener, the opener that I recommended to break in the last replay. Trying to break a Human expansion. On Concealed Hill, it's, you know, not the best Human map for trying to fast expand, but it definitely is very doable. It's not like this is an immediate veto from Human players against Undead or anything like that, so... It's definitely a matchup I think both parties struggle with. It's a weird thing, because the Humans, of course... You know, Humans don't like this matchup, obviously. They don't like playing against Undead. But weirdly enough, Undeads, a lot of the Undeads I speak to, don't like playing against Human either, fast expansions. So, it's definitely both sides don't like this. They wish this matchup was not a thing. But we'll see if we can help Swerte a little bit. Am I pronouncing that right? Swerte? I know you're in the chat. Let me know. Let me know. Let's check it out. And we'll see... We'll see if our assumption is right about the strategy. Here we go. Replay number 2. So here's Swerte in the upper right, and in the bottom left we do have... Mad Human. I actually know him. I play this guy on ladder sometimes. I have played him, so... I do know this guy. Both players probably pretty good, actually. 1600 MMR is getting up there. I think this is my worst matchup, for sure. It's a very common thing I hear from Undead players. Bidu included. Bidu hates playing this matchup. Swerte? Swerte? Is that right? Oof, getting compared to Bidu. And Insup. Insup hates this matchup too. So I'm gonna have a sip of water. Sniffle a little bit, and here we go. So, good base build. All the things, again, that I said in the last game apply to this. The shop. You don't want that to be killed, especially in this matchup. That should never happen, but it can. Graveyard close to the trees. It's all good stuff. All good stuff. I wouldn't recommend closing your base in this matchup because what a lot of top humans do is they actually just, if your base is closed, they just buy a Staff of Teleportation, send the footies into the back of the base, and staff back there. That's something you see Cruncher, for instance, do all the time. So let's talk a little bit about the Scout Acolyte. Although Swerte is a pretty high-level player, he probably knows everything that he's scouting for in this situation, but we'll talk about it regardless. Let's see what Swerte says. Did I get that? Is that, yeah, right? Okay, good. Okay. So we're seeing a third farm already. So what we want to scout for, we're not going to see initially, but what we want to scout for a little bit later is two things. Is he building peasants past the 9 peasant mark? 8 is the standard number. 9 is sometimes like they just want to be safe. Sorry. And anything past that is they're going for an expansion. The big tell, though, would of course just be a 4th farm. Just a 4th farm, and that pretty much seals the deal that they are going to expand. So we always want to normally re-scout for this, or at least send our Acolyte, if we can get away from this Footman, over to this side to see when the militia are being called. We can do a lot of things. You know, they're going to creep this, and then they're a lot of the time going to wait for night, and then they're going to call like 7 militia and creep this. If we could do any sorts of delay, a lot of the time what you can do as the undead is you can almost guarantee this last hit. I see this all the time. The timing is a little bit tight because the most standard way to play this is to creep this whole camp and then to run straight down and creep jack the expansion creep. But you can definitely, if you delay just a little bit or creep very quickly, you can actually get this Null Overseer. They're probably going to get these 4 creeps, but you can actually show up just in time to last hit this Null Overseer or delay the creeping quite a bit just by your Death Knight being there. So that's something I want to see. Really clean initial creeping on this camp, maybe attempted delay with the Acolyte, and of course using the Acolyte more than one time to see if there's a 4th farm or not. Because we don't know at this stage if it's going to be 1 base or 2 base. We don't know.
Summoning is complete.
This is already really good, because 2 footmen chasing is like, well, he's not creeping with 2 footmen. Like, this is already really good for us. We'll see how clean the creeping is. The critter a little bit out of position, not the end of the world.
Our forces are under
Good.
attack.
Very, very good. Use the coil right away. Skeletons in the back so they don't get snared. All really nice.
Our forces are under attack.
Acolyte got a ton of value. It didn't scout the 4th farm, so we're just going to have to assume our opponent's expanding, but doesn't really matter. So this is all really good. Yeah, perfect. You even keep the skeleton. Perfect. Totally perfect. And now just immediately run down. Sometimes we see people on this map, and this is a suggestion, not something that I think is necessary to win, but it's pretty common. They get backpack on this map to get their 2nd rod with this fiend. And then because there's obviously, if we were to go right now to get our 2nd rod, 1, it would still be on cooldown in the shop, so we wouldn't actually be able to purchase it right now. And 2, we'd be late to steal this Null Overseer potentially. So a lot of people get backpack before teching, and then they actually just buy their 2nd rod on this fiend to continue to harass a little bit. Not needed, but a cool little play that's very common. Oh. Yeah, this is a little bit inefficient. Oh, yeah. And that's all it takes. Let's see. Let's see how the timing is. There's always a world in which they can actually kill the Null Overseer first, but of course, humans are always going to want to creep these three because Poison and because Purge. Let's see how the timing is on the Null Overseer now, though. Just because that little bit of wasted time. Let's see. Let's see. Because this is, I see this all the time with undeads. They come in last second, and boop, they steal the Null Overseer. Let's see. So if we were, say, 5 seconds quicker, we actually can get that. And even if we don't get it, we still, just by us being here, Mad Human has to actually tank the Null Overseer and sit there. So this little delay here, our creeping was so well done. It was so well done. But then running here, that's actually a bigger mistake than it may seem. Because if you steal this Null Overseer, you're level 2, he's not level 3. Now the fact that he's level 3 already actually makes this quite easy for him, because level 2 water elementals are extremely good against skeletons. So, you know, just clean that up a little bit would make this a lot cooler. Look how that Null Overseer dying. Look at that. That looks sick. It looks like a dog, really. You see that? Huh. Moving on. But now, this is a very important part of the matchup. So, and I've heard, you know, particularly I've talked to Duck about this. Please leave Duck. And he didn't actually agree with me when I said this, so I might be wrong. But I'll still tell you guys my philosophy on this matchup. I don't think it's too important to kill a ton of peasants. I think you really only need to kill like 3. And the getting behind, I see a lot of undead players, what happens to a lot of undead players is they think they need to kill like 8 peasants. So they continuously push, they wait till their death is like 50 health, and then they run back, they get another rod, and they immediately run back and continue to harass the expansion. All you have to do here is kill like 2-3 peasants, you'll get level 2, you'll have aura. Use the rod that you have, use the coil that you have. If this fiend brings in another rod, sure, you can stick around a little while longer. But if you kill like 3-4 peasants, that's fine. That's fine. Then what you can do is you can go back, creep like, say, this camp, or creep like maybe this camp, wait for your Lich to come out, and then you can pressure a little bit more once your Lich is out and once you're going for that sort of, you know, 3-4 fiend timing to cancel the towers. But initially here, when you just have one fiend and you're level 1 DK, you don't need to worry. How's it going, Bonking? You don't need to worry about killing every single one of these peasants. It would be a mistake for your opponent to lose all these peasants. It would take a mistake, and you don't want to play based on your opponent making mistakes. You want to play based on your opponent playing very well. How do I win a player that's playing very well? And a player that's playing very well is only going to lose about 2 or 3 peasants. That's all we can count on reliably killing. Anything past that would be an overcommitment. I don't know what's going to happen, but let's see. Let's see. And you can definitely guarantee about 3 peasants, because again, you have 2 coils and you have Rod and Necromancy. Like, these 2 peasants are already pretty much free kills. Right?
The town is under siege.
Yes, we're going to get 2, as it seems. Can definitely get a 3rd as well. We get level 2. So we have aura, so the damage we're taking our DK. So that's good. That's really good. Like, in this case, we could stick around maybe a little while longer. Like, we could come back in, summon 2 more skellies, and maybe go for like a 4th peasant. But we definitely don't have to stick around here forever. Like, just going back and just creeping like this camp, or going back and creeping like the turtles, and just waiting for our tier 2 to be finished, and wait for our Lich to come out and go back and get another rod, that's totally acceptable. The amount of damage we've done already is totally fine for us. And most importantly, we're keeping the human defensive so they're not pressuring our base, because they're still worried we're going to go back and re-hit with more skeletons to kill more peasants. So the human has to stay defensive right here, unless they guaranteed know where your DK is. Come back in. We might be able to get 1 more peasant. Okay, we do get 1 more peasant, so that's decent, but that's about all we're going to be able to get. So now definitely going, it feels a little wasteful, but going all the way back home, getting another rod, and creeping like a green camp or creeping a shop while we wait for our Lich, I think is fine, because we want to have DK level 3 by the time our tier 3 hits. We definitely do. Like, there's games, and it's always hard to make comparisons to Happy, because Happy is particularly good against human, and he also wins games that he shouldn't win, that most people, or pretty much every undead, cannot win. But there's tons of games where Happy kills like 2-3 peasants, goes back and creeps Death Knight level 3, and then just wins on the tier 3 timing. Because he has such an early Death Knight level 3 from creeping earlier on, because he hasn't wasted a ton of gold on, like, you know, a ritual dagger or an extra rod of necromancy, because he hasn't wasted all his mana or his health on getting one extra peasant. Because he's done all these things, he's actually much stronger when tier 3 comes around. Like, this is all, in my opinion, just big wasted time. Big wasted time, big wasted potential. We could already be back home creeping, and yes, the human might come in and pressure us, but we're going to have a lich out by then, and then all we do is we just focus on lowering the numbers of footmen. This is something you see Happy do all the time as well. He's constantly, and 120 even, he's constantly coil novaing the footman, just killing every footman. Every time the human comes in, they don't focus on, you know, forcing a TP, killing the archmage. They don't do that. They just focus down the footman and just pick off one after the next with their mana, and eventually the human is just feeding you experience. See, and now we're forced into a potion. These are the little efficiencies that I'm talking about. Because we are a little bit too aggressive, now we have to use a potion of healing, which is something we don't want to have to do. We want to invest everything into, you know, the earlier Fourth Fiend, right? The earlier statue, which is the more typical way to play. Back in the day, people used to go tier 3 right away, but nowadays people prefer to go for more Fiend stat heavy on tier 2, which is totally cool. Again, Nova coiling footman here, I would say, is totally acceptable. Did we get that kill? We didn't. That's unfortunate because there's a fountain. And the idea of this push makes sense because we're going to try to cancel potential guard towers. But we could have still done this timing and been a little bit stronger because we went back to our base earlier. Because this can be a very snowbally matchup. Now the human's going to push us, and if we're not ready to defend, if we're not as strong as we could be, if we don't have a ton of mana, if we're not potentially close to level 3, the human can really just bully us for the entire game. Again, coil novaing footman here is totally acceptable. We use the coil defensively, which is absolutely fine, of course. Yeah, just lowering the numbers of footmen, this is totally fine. BC micro in the statue, you love to see it. And see, this is a situation the humans do all the time. He's just feeding you footmen. What would be the better play for this human player right now? You keep the footmen, for instance, like right here. Or right, you know, like they were before right here. You go in with the Archmage and the Water Elementals and just start attacking statues. And just keep your footmen on the perimeter, and as soon as the undead runs down to go to cancel towers, then you run the footman in and dive into his base. What the human's doing here is a mistake for this very reason. He's just feeding you experience, and this is why you should just kill the footmen, nova them, coil them every single time you get the opportunity to, until it's the point where the humans invested so much gold and given you so much experience, and they've gotten really nothing out of their footmen. So this is good, killing all these footmen right here. And a mistake from this human. So right here, these have been nice denies from Mad Human, but like right here, I would say, like you're being aggressive, you want to run down and like cancel these towers. I'd say the better play in this position though, because you've killed pretty much all the footmen. Because you've nearly killed all the footmen, sorry, I was reading something in chat. You could just go creep, because the human player is not going to be able to... They can't dive with just their Archmage. They can slow down your creep with their Archmage, but the only way they can counterattack and dive and do damage is if they really have a huge number of footmen, like 6, 7, 8 footmen. Then they can run into your base and start to do damage. But because you've killed all the footmen now, you could just creep until tier 3. Creep Death Knight level 3. Creep Lich level 2. And then you pick up a Pit Lord at tier 3, get Destroyer form, and push. Right now, what I'd say, again, would be a mistake is if you're over-aggressive at this stage. Trying to go down, because that's what you were trying to do earlier when you were pushing down, and you got intercepted by the footmen. You were trying to pressure the expansion again. So going right down now, although it kind of makes sense, you want to cancel the towers, right, that you know are coming up. you should just creep here. You should just creep. You could even creep this lab. You could even creep the lab. Although creeping the lab, you could argue is a mistake because the human wants to get a shredder eventually, but still, it's a lot of experience. Creeping the shop would be good. Stealing this green away, creeping this shop as well would be good. Just creeping here, trying to get DK level 3 by the time your tier 3 is done. Because if you're not level 3 by the time you want to do what I'm assuming to be a Pit Lord third push, that's a mistake. You want level 3. Go watch a Happier 120 replay. They're always level 3 when they're doing their tier 3 timing on their DK. Always level 3. When I watched the replay, I thought, what did I do wrong? Now I can clearly see my mistakes. And, you know, these are a lot of... This is a matchup I'm very opinionated about. And people have disagreed with me. Humans have disagreed with me. Undeads have disagreed with me. Totally fine. These are just my thoughts on the matchup. And from what I've seen in replays, my opinions on the matchup. You know, not being over-aggressive, not caring too much about killing footmen. Or killing peasants, rather. Trying to get DK level 3. These are things that I very much see when I watch the matchup. And I think are good ways to play. There's different opinions for sure. Playing over-aggressive might be some top undeads what they have most success with. Worth trying all styles. But in this case, in this replay, I'd definitely say, as we see you go to cancel towers now, not creeping, you've definitely been more aggressive. Bottom hunt, push, defended well. I actually want to do an entire episode on that Bond King. Because I did it from the bottom side, I want to do it from the DH side as well. But this is still good. I mean, you're still... It's not as though you ran down and did nothing, right? You're canceling the towers. You're forcing them to repair. You're forcing them into items. But this isn't free, right? You have to remember that when you're doing these sorts of intermediate pushes before tier 3 hits, everything you're doing, every time you use a coil, every exchange, all the mana and health you use on your statues... all the, you know, the lacking of creeping you do. This all is a sacrifice you make to do damage now, which actually makes your tier 3 push weaker. This is what we have to remember. Do we want to do damage now because we see an opening and we think we can do a lot more? Or do we want to save this and be stronger when our tier 3 hits and we pick up our Pit Lord and push with Destroyer and Orb? Opportunity cost. Good. Yeah, so... You know, this definitely isn't a bad push. This isn't a bad play. We cancel the towers, going to kill more footmen, but we're weaker for it later on, is what we always have to remember. And of course, a lot of games end on the Pit Lord push. A lot of happy games. He pushes at tier 3 with the Pit Lord, and he just wins the game, and it's like, what the hell could the human have done? That's because he set himself up so well that his push is so strong. He's got full mana on his DK. He's got full mana on his Lich. He's got the maximum amount of units that he could have because he hasn't invested in potions of healing. He has DK level 3, Lich level 2. Right? He's got everything on time as well. He sets himself up so well, and then that one big tier 3 push is so strong that humans are like, what the hell? I have my 4 towers. I got my double arcane, double guard. You know, I've kept my footmen alive. What the hell am I supposed to do? It's just because he's so strong at that particular timing. One thing I'd recommend human players, if you're watching, and I think we do have a couple human... Yeah, we have a human player right after this, in fact. In these sort of fights, put your water elementals on the statue. Thank you, Acid Rain, for teaching me this. Always put your water elementals... Like, imagine how difficult this fight would be for Swerte if this water elemental was on this statue and this water elemental was on this statue right now. He's trying to micro his fiends away from these footmen that he can't kill, and there's 2 water elementals attacking both of his statues that he has to also kill. It makes it so hard for the undead to micro. Always put your water elementals on the statues. I'd say almost at every stage in the game, except for when you're defending the initial harass. It is so good. It's so good. Again, this is another opinion that I have in particular about this matchup that human players might disagree with, but I think it's very, very good. Try it out, human players. Try it out. Always put the water elementals on statues and see what happens. You're going to get so many free kills. Oh, did he do it now? I think he did it. Okay, no, he didn't do it. Literally just AFK them on the statues. Okay, this is good. Okay, he's doing it. He's doing it. Good. See, like, we're not losing any units, right? Wait, we lost a Fiend, right? Did we lose a Fiend? No, we didn't. We only killed Footman. So we're not losing anything, so it seems like I must be really ahead. I'm killing a lot, and I'm not losing any units. Like, why aren't I ahead? Well, your DK is not 3, your statue's low, your statue mana's low, all your Fiends are low, your Lich is still level 1, you don't have any items for your Lich. Your push is late because you're not back at home getting your orb yet. There's a lot of things, which is like, it seems like you should be in a good spot, but you're not because you've been fighting so often. Are you getting backpack? Let's see. Backpack? Backpack? Okay, there it is. But see, this push is already... I'm almost tempted to load up a happy replay right after this. I'm almost tempted. Because I might, you know, like, okay, right now, Backpack is being researched. I bet you Happy would already be in this human's base with a Pit Lord right now. With level 3 DK, level 2 Lich, and a Destro. I bet you. I bet maybe Destro form is on time for you. But I bet you. I bet you he would be.
A player's forces are under attack.
See, and let's assume as well, because we've been so passive, these towers would be up. Like I'm saying, Happy would already be in this base, and the towers were upgrading, so it looks really good, right? But of course, if you were more passive, these towers would have already been up because you canceled these towers, right? But still, humans are going to have, most top humans are going to have 2 guard towers, 2 arcane towers. That's what they're going to have. That's what you have to break. They're going to have that, Footman, and a Mountain King.
A player's forces are under attack.
If all has gone well for them. If the harass didn't go terrible for them at all. Still level 2 Death Knight, notice. Level 2 Death Knight and no mana. We have 1 Nova left, no coils. So we have all the prerequisites. We have our Pit Lord, we have our Orb now, we have our Destroyer. Why isn't this push going to be strong? Well, it's not going to be strong because we have no coils, we have low-level Death Knight. We only have 1 statue here because we lost our 3rd statue earlier fighting. Our statue has to stay on healing. It can't give us a ton of mana because our fiends have all been a little bit low. Okay, maybe this push is going to work. Let's see. It may work. You killed the MK. Fair play, fair play. Now, there's a lot of details to the sort of how to execute the Pit Lord push, but like, so far so good. No worries. No worries. No coil to save the Pit Lord. Even if you had a coil to save the Pit Lord, you passed the potion. Nicely done. Even if you had a coil to save the Pit Lord, it's only a level 1 coil. Okay, you're going to have level 3 now. Good, good. And see, Mr. Mad Human is kind of just barely scraping by. Like, his MK is probably about to be out. Again, okay, his Paladin was queued up after. But all the human has to do, remember, is scrape by in these defenses. And then they're stronger. Any undead player knows this, right? Like, you know that when they get their Tri-Hero, they get their first couple Knights out, they get their 8 Flying Machines out, you know that you're no longer going to be winning the fight as an undead player without already being extremely ahead. So you kind of have to do, like, real damage here. What isn't real damage? Just killing the towers, of course. The towers are there to be killed. The peasants are what you need to kill. You need to, you know, ensure that they don't have the economy to go into a ton of knights, and they don't have the army to creep up their Mount King and their Paladin. You need to do these sort of things. But as it stands so far, we've really only killed the towers. That was what our push succeeded in doing. And we didn't do it for free either. We lost a statue, we lost like 4 fiends, we lost our Pit Lord. So we almost kind of traded evenly on that push. And the human here doesn't even have to fight. He's just got to chill. Like, he could fight, and you might win the fight, right? Like, you could win the fight. You got 2 fiends. You can chain morph destroyers to win the air battle. Like, you could definitely win this fight. But let's remember, the human doesn't have to fight. He could run back, you know, let you kill a few peasants, wait till he's got a couple more flying machines, wait till he's got another knight, you know. he could wait. He doesn't actually have to fight here. So although we potentially could still win this fight, the human has successfully done what they needed to do. In this moment, I'm panicked because I didn't break the expo. Yeah, at this stage, this is where it becomes very difficult. If you don't break the expo, which is why I'm so focused on the initial Pit Lord push, and, you know, setting yourself up for success at that stage. I sound like a pyramid scheme runner when I say setting yourself up for success, but you know what I mean. If you don't break the expo at that timing, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. Not gonna lie to you. It's very difficult. The best thing you can do, fall back, try to creep aggressively in such a way that the human is not allowed to creep up their Mount King or their Paladin, like stealing away like the middle camp, stealing away like their lab away from them, teching into Banshees against the Knights for anti-magic, for Curse for the Knights, for possession later on, and just trying to get the hero level advantage and tech into Banshees so that they can't just nuke your Fiends down. That's sort of the best follow-up you can have. But it's very difficult and comes a lot down to micro, definitely. As I said, the human doesn't have to fight here. He definitely doesn't have to, but he's going to force the TP. PaulIO71 with the Prime for 4 months. Thank you so much, Paul. How you doing? When should the undead expand? Tough question. Tough question. I'd say if say the Pit Lord push doesn't work, right? And this is, I'm sort of half guessing here, so I totally could be wrong at this stage, but say the Pit Lord push doesn't work. You fall back and do what I said, you tech into Banshees, you creep the map to try to get the hero level advantage, you don't allow them to just power creep their Mount King and Pally up to level 3. Like, if the human gets to 4-3-3, there's not much you can do. But say you do that successfully, you keep their Paladin on, like, level 2, you get Banshees, I mean, the map is pretty much crept out, then at that stage, you're actually going to be stronger because you have the better heroes. At that stage, you could probably get an expansion, but I would say after the Pit Lord push fails, your main priority should probably not be counter-expanding. It should be trying to creep as much as you can. Now it's actually over. It's definitely over considering you've lost so much. Like, if the Pit Lord push fails and, like, you didn't lose anything, like, you didn't lose the Fiends or the statues or the Pit Lord, right? If you didn't lose all those things, there's still definitely a good shot because you haven't lost a lot of units yet. But because you lost so much, and you didn't break the expansion or kill many peasants at all, yeah, it's probably over. But also, looking at the game right now, honestly, you could probably creep this and push again, and you might be able to win a fight at this stage. If he creeps this red, it's going to be very difficult. But, like, right now, looking at the armies, like, if you just pushed, could you not win a fight? Let's see. I mean, maybe you'll push again. I guess maybe we'll find out. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we will find out. Okay, you are pushing again. So the best thing to do here, probably chain morph these suckers. Try to win the air fight. Like, hope that he's underproduced flying machines, which he's playing very safe with double workshop, but get 4 Destros up in the air. Try to win right here. That's probably the best play. I think you could win this fight, though, for sure. Yeah, you are chain morphing. So you're definitely doing everything you can, for sure. This is still such a winnable fight. Nuke that Pally right away. I'd say killing this Paladin. Best bet. Oh, he's going Griffins. I totally missed those. That's annoying. Those 2 Griffins then made this so much more difficult. Still, I think if you actually just fought into him and try to, I try not to make too many points on micro, but instead of trying to kite with your whole army in these situations, the better way to do it is to kite individual. If you watch Infi playing off races, or even playing human, but in particular Infi's very, very good at this. When you're kiting, kite back, not by moving your whole army, but by moving 1 unit at a time. So let's say, for instance, your army is in this position and it's fighting. Ignore the statue. Your army's in this position as fighting. How might you kite back? Well, you start by, you move this fiend back. You move this fiend back. You move this ghoul back. Then you move the statue back. And then these 4 units are back here. And then you move this fiend back. And then you move this fiend back. And in the meantime, while you're moving these single units back and slowly leapfrogging backwards, the rest of your army is still fighting. Whereas a mistake that a lot of people make, especially Night Elf players I find with mass archers, is they move their entire army. They use 1 and 2 hotkeys and just 1, 2, 1, 2 and move back. Where you really want to, and you see Happy do this all the time, and like I said, particularly Infi, 1 unit back at a time, and you're still kiting, but the rest of your army's still getting damage in. What's up, Armin? How's it going? Yeah, this is tricky. This is tricky. I think you still could have won the fight. I think you, at this stage, you still could have won the fight for sure. But it's just micro at this stage. It's very difficult. And of course, he's got that 4-3-3 now as well, which 4-3-3 is tricky. Now, I'm very tempted to download a Happy replay and to show you all how wrong I've been this entire time. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Constantly 1 unit back, 1 unit back, 1 unit back. And GG will be called. That was a nice submission. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because I know a lot of people struggle in that matchup, and there's a lot of points to be made there. Now, do I risk it? Do I risk it and open up a Happy replay? And risk looking like a fool because he does nothing the same? Sure. Let's risk it. Let's risk it. I'm gonna download the first Happy versus Human replay on Concealed Hill that I was able to, okay? Thank you, Marzi2323. Appreciate it for the sub. Okay, so this, let's see how Happy's. I hope he does. Oh, actually, he has no Pit Lord in this game, so this is differently played. I do want to see a game where he has a Pit Lord. Okay, if I can't find a replay in like 30 seconds, I'll just cut it out. Oh, there's a replay of him winning in 4 minutes. Wow, that's probably riveting. Concealed Hill, Concealed Hill, Concealed Hill. Certain NIS game, he loses some heroes. Oh, I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. Not a ton of Concealed Hill games. There's a 10-minute long game. Does he get a Pit Lord? He gets a Fire Lord. What the? Okay. Okay, we're going to look for 20 more seconds. We're going to move on to the next replay. Even if it's not on. All right, here's a Pit Lord push. Okay, this isn't on the same map, but nevertheless. Let's see. Let's see how much he commits. The main things I want to see is, what does he look like when he goes for the push? All right, see ya, Swerte. What does he look like when he's initially going for the push? And how much does he commit to the initial harass? Those are the 2 things. So we're going to zoom through this replay. We're going to zoom through it. All right? We're gonna 20x speed it just to see. So here's Happy versus Hawk on Northern Isles, okay? Real quick, real quick. And he does go Pit Lord third. Never seen this replay in my life. Apparently I was in this game. No clue. Let's see what happens. All right. Don't blame me if nothing goes the same. So 1 camp initially.
Town is under siege.
And of course the harass is going to go slightly different than it does in other games. So he's going to go in. Let's see how many peasants he kills. Let's see how many. He's got decent mana. He's got level 2. Let's see. He actually got a 2nd Rotter Necromancy as well. He's killed 1 peasant. Killed 2 peasants. Did Hawk win this game? Who cares? He killed 2 peasants. Okay, he's gonna go back around. Okay, kills a 3rd. Okay, kills 4. That's how many we killed in the last game, remember? That's how many we killed.
A town is under siege.
And he goes back, and now I bet... Let's see. Let's actually see. Hawk's playing this pretty well so far. He gets level 3. So, like, in most cases, you're not going to be able to get level 3. But we see Happy really... He crept 2 camps before harassing. What does this do? This sacrifices the amount of damage that he's able to do at the expansion because he shows up much later, only getting 4 peasants. But he's sacrificing this so that he's able to get level 3 as early as possible. Because he doesn't want to be stuck on level 2. Main thing.
A player's forces are
And then let's see when he initially... So he's going again for that tower cancel timing, but, you know... He doesn't need to creep because it's already level 3. Did he buy a circlet? He had to have bought a circlet, yeah. Lich comes. Again, just focusing on killing footmen. Still just focusing on killing footmen. That's all he's doing. Imagine if he loses this game. Like, oh, that was a big waste of time. Not losing any units. Already has level 3 DK. Goes back, creeps. He's waiting for his tier 3 to be done, of course. He's already got backpack because he brought a second rod earlier for the harass with his fiend, right? With his first fiend. That's similar to what I said at the beginning of the last replay in Concealed Hill. He's recovering with the statues. He's getting more mana. He's creeping 1 camp, gonna get Lich level 2. He's gonna bring the orb right away with probably a ghoul. Okay, he's gonna get the orb. And notice, right now it's 9.5 minutes into the game. At 10.5 minutes was when Swerte last game was just trying to creep that shop. And then remember, he crept the shop, and then he ran up and got his pit lord, then ran to the expansion. So he wasn't pushing until about 11 minutes. And he was pushing with 1 less statue, level 2 DK with no mana, level 1 Lich with 1 Nova, and no orb yet. That's when he was pushing. So look, Happy's about to be level 2. He's got a ton of mana because he went back and crept and set himself up. Because creeping not only is going to get him, you know, more gold, more experience, all this stuff, but it also gives his statues time to get him more mana, get him more health, get everything back up. So he actually has coils and novas when he pushes initially. And then he's bringing the orb right away on the fiend. He's going to get the pit lord. He's going to be pushing by like 10 minutes. And then he's going to lose. Again, still hasn't lost anything yet. Still recovering with the statues. He doesn't get the pit lord though, weirdly. So maybe not exactly what we were looking for, but still. He's never overcommitted though. He's always going back to heal, going back to get mana. He's not just pushing the whole time. And then eventually just gonna... Where's the pit lord coming? There was a pit lord in this game. Jesus. Okay, he lost 1 fiend. Does he get a pit lord here? Well, there's that. But this isn't an episode about undead versus humans, so whatever. But he's got his priorities straight. Always need level 3. You need DK mana. You need to not lose units early on. You need to not be buying things like potions of healing early on. He bought a circlet before his Lich, of course. Lost a fiend. Yeah, lost 1 fiend. So what's the human supposed to do here? Hawk played that very well, actually. But that'd be getting into the weeds. Okay. That was a tangent, but an important one, nevertheless. And I think we continue this trend, do we? We have a human player now. Human against Night Elf. Curunir. I think that's how you pronounce it. I know Curunir's submitted replays before, but you know, doesn't mean I know how to pronounce his name. He says, Keeper wrecking me poor human, Hulp Plox. Alright, so this is going to be human versus Night Elf, 1400 MMR. It's going to be on Northern Isles. Let's see what happens. Now, switching gears. No more undead versus human. No more undead versus human. Is there? I don't think there's another undead versus human. So yeah, we spent a lot of time on that matchup. The undeads got what they needed. Okay, that's it for undeads today. Now we're on to humans and orcs and night elves. Okay, they got what they needed today. So undeads, no more undeads will we see today. So as a human player against night elf, I recommend fast expanding. Very fast expansion indeed. I recommend expanding almost immediately. But Todd has said in the past that, yes, expanding right away, by that I mean as soon as your Archmage comes out, you literally go creep the expansion with 2 peasants on lumber and you power build the expo right away. Todd has said there are ways to counter that if you're overly predictable with your expansion timing. So it's good to do it not right away all the time, but, you know, maybe a little bit later, creeping level 3 off the camp, stuff like that. But those are a couple of ways you can expand. You can also play one base, which is totally acceptable. Also play one base. Hey, we got a Patreon pledge. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I think I thanked Martzy2333. Yeah, I did. So there's a few ways to play. So we'll wait and see. Of course, I would recommend fast expanding against Night Elf, but we'll see what Curunir does. Is it one base? Expansion versus Night Elf doesn't work for me at all. I get killed a lot. Yeah, probably by like 2 Ancient War Huntress push, tier 2 push. Okay, yeah. For sure. That's a skill in and of itself. Yeah, no worries, man. No worries. So I assume this will be a one base game. In which case, that's very interesting as well. Now, I like one base. I think it's fun. I think it's what a lot of players tend to play. There's kind of a, you know, it's definitely a viable strategy. It's a good strategy playing one base. It's not the best, but it's played by top level humans. It beats top level night elves. Totally viable. So let's talk about it. So far, no issues. You're going for 3 farm. You're creeping a big camp right away. Why is he creeping a big camp right away? Well, of course, you want to get level 3 ASAP. So what I would recommend, the best way to play this style on Northern Isles is to, you creep this, right? And then you creep this green camp. And then maybe you're being harassed by a keeper at this point, but nevertheless, you come over and you creep this. And then, after you creep these 3 camps, you run across the map towards the human's base. At the same time, you call militia, and you creep this green camp. Then you get level 3 when you're about, say, here. And then the real game begins. And the real game begins with the pressure on level 3. The pressure on level 3 is very important to play on one base if you're going for some sort of a tier 2 timing. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. Burrow Rush with the 300 bits. Says go Curunir. Thank you, Burrow Rush. Appreciate you. How's it going? So far, no issues. This is a good creep route to start us off. We'll see if this creep route continues what I suggested. Footman scouting. Of course, the footman scouting to see, is it a demon hunter, warden, keeper, beastmaster, panda? What hero is it? And we're going to lose some footmen, all right? We're going to lose some, but the big thing is you don't worry, you're going to lose. You're going to lose footmen.
Our player's forces are under attack.
Just like right here. You're losing a footman, it's all right. Right, so I'd immediately like to see him come and creep this. You might get creep jacked there, but still just creep it. Still just creep it. That'd be the best play. Tier 2 underway. Good tier 2 timing. Now I'd like to see a tower right away. The reason why I want to see a tower right away is because if this keeper comes across the map and starts to harass you, like say he summons treants, gets into your base, starts harassing, you want to have an arcane tower to prevent against that, because of course the idea with the one base strat, getting level 3 early, is you're going to be running across to their side right away as well. So if they run to your side, you want their harass to pretty much be null and void because of that arcane. So arcane right now would be good. Would be good. All right, good. No issues thus far. Just need that arcane tower. Blacksmith, that's good. And then, of course, we can go and get dust. And then run straight across the map, call militia to creep this green camp. That'll get us level 3. Looks like you want to go back and creep this with just your Archmage, but then the timing is a little bit rough, because if we run straight cross map after we do this creep route, boom, bang, boom, and then we run and we creep this with militia, you actually hit a timing in that you can cancel their Hunter's Hall a lot of the time. So it's pretty strong, and you're also there early enough to cancel their Hunter's Hall. Maybe cancel the 4th Moonwall, 3rd Moonwall that we're seeing right here, probably the 4th most likely. But also, you're there long enough to be able to cancel lures as well. So that's why not creeping this with your actual Archmage, instead creeping it with just solo militia, is, I think, on this map at least, the best way to play. This Keeper Harass wouldn't really do anything. You just have to call militia a little bit later. And of course you'd have an Arcane Tower. I think what your opponent was trying to do was counter a fast expansion. See, and now we're kind of forced into being defensive, when really this Keeper can't do anything in our base. Assuming we have this Arcane Tower already up, he can't really do anything. He can maybe try to kill a peasant, he can maybe try to creepjack your militia, but even if he creepjacks your militia and you're in his base with only level 2, still, as we can see, Hunter's Hall canceled, Wisps exposed. We'd have dust for these archers because we'd stop by the shop on the way over. So now we're very much into like a neutral, we're in a neutral game now, right? He's not really killing anything. Yeah, he might kill a footman here and there, but that's just how Keeper works. But he's not taking any damage. You're not taking any real damage economically. You're not losing any rifles or anything. So we're in an even game. Who's at an advantage in an early game? Or not early, an even game? The Night Elf is going to be. Which is why most typically you're fast expanding, because you want to be up economically early against Night Elf to be able to win. Because a lot of the time you're going to be tier 2 against tier 3. Their Keeper's going to get them kills in the early game. They're going to have like a Panda that scales nice in the late game. They're going to have a lot of things going their way. So you want to be able to get some sort of an advantage, whether it be economic, which is why we fast expand, or whether it be tech or, you know, lumber economy, stuff like that, which is why we harass with level 3 and then follow it up with the timing. Whereas in this situation where we're just sort of exchanging in your base and nobody's getting super far ahead, nobody's getting super far behind, it's always going to favor the Night Elf in this situation. Which is why we need to be actively harassing. And we would have already been in his base harassing. We wouldn't have been level 3 because he would have stopped our militia, but we still would have been harassing. And you know what we could do? We could even just steal away this camp or this camp to get our level 3 as well. Right? We could even just do that.
Players' forces are under attack.
That could be denied. You get one archer. Macro's looking really good though. 2 rifles by the time your tier 2 is done your macro is good. You have your shop up, you have your lumber mill, so no real macro errors thus far. Your creep route was also pretty good. You just needed to be a little more aggressive. So there's really only been one major mistake so far. And now I'd say this would be a good time to call militia and go for it. As we can see, your lumber's good enough. You have 150, which means you're going to be able to at least get your Mount King and your Arcane Sanctum. The long rifles is going to have to wait, but it shouldn't be an issue. So calling like 5-6 militia right now and getting your level 3 should be a priority. And then what do you know? You're still able to hit a tier 2 timing to cancel his lures. What you probably shouldn't do is bring these rifles cross map because they're most likely going to get entangled and die. So leaving these back home when you're going for this aggressive play, probably the better way to do it. And just sacrificing the footman. IMO, because this rifle might actually die if he catches it. Now at tier 2 there's quite a few options, like Beastmaster we've seen pretty often. Beastmaster second, and that's for big timings at his base. Naga's pretty good. Blood Mage is very, very common. Mountain King's also not bad. Mountain King would probably be the bottom of the list for me, playing one base against Night Elf, but it's still doable. A rifle gets caught. Could have been avoided. Still can be saved, though, because it's not level 2 Entangle yet. We didn't actually get Dust. Did Dust get stolen? No, it didn't, right? Should have definitely gotten Dust. Yeah, this is rough. This is almost Town Portal territory here for us. Yeah, this is, the fact that he's going to kill 2 rifles, even if he loses some archers, is pretty much already game-winning for him. Because the whole point, you either have to get a tier 2 expansion up, which by the time you get a tier 2 expansion up, most cases Night Elves are going to have bears. Not almost IMO. Yeah, for sure. I definitely think it would have been TP time earlier. Because if you go for a tier 2 expansion, you're stuck on Rifle Caster. The Night Elf is going to go tier 3, and he's going to go for a bear bust, which is going to be much stronger because, you know, your expo's later. You don't have that big of an advantage. So that's kind of rough, going for a tier 2 expansion in this matchup. The better option being going for a tier 2 timing with something like a Naga or a Beastmaster or a Blood Mage with a level 3 Archmage, Rifle Caster, Towers, and trying to push before they hit tier 3 is really strong, but you can't do that if you're losing rifles. You can do that if you're trading Footmen for Archers, if you're trading Footmen for Lore Cancels, if you're trading Footmen for Moonwell Mana. But if you're losing rifles, which are really the bulk of your army when you're going for this push, the game's pretty much over. Because now you don't have the strength to actually push. So now you're almost forced to do a tier 2 expansion, which we've already established is rough. It's rough to do. Is this a third rifle? This is a third rifle, right?
A player's forces are under attack.
Arcane Sanctum. So your macro was so good up till this point. I forgot about the Arcane Sanctum, which should also be power built with at least 2 peasants, because you can't bring your rifles really out of your base until... That's unfortunate, too. You can't bring your rifles out of the base until you have priests and adepts, so power building that, not a bad idea either. Yeah, so the idea behind the aggression is good, but just the timings in which you were aggressive weren't kind of it. So how could we have made this early game easier or better overall? This would have been a hugely different game had we just crept this camp, this camp, this camp, which we did, right? We did all that. After we creep this camp, we immediately run to the shop by dusk. It was nighttime. And then immediately run to his base. We call militia and attempt to creep this. Yes, maybe he would have... Yes, he would have maybe creep-jacked this because his keeper was in this position. Totally fine, because we're still able to go into his base and cancel his Hunter's Hall and probably force him to Town Portal. In which case, once he Town Portals, then we call militia and we creep this. No matter what, we either do tons of damage to his base or we get our level 3 while still harassing him. Another thing we could have done, leave the rifles back here, not letting them die to Entangle in the mid-game. What also could have helped is getting the Arcane Sanctum earlier. Now it's going to be very, very late with power built with 2 peasants. Thank you for the raid, Pokey. How's it going? Those are already a few things that could have helped us. And then at tier 2, instead of getting this Mountain King, which we've gotten, instead getting either a Naga or a Beastmaster to follow up, or even just a Blood Mage to follow up. If he goes Demon Hunter second, the keeper player, Blood Mage is normally best. If he's going to go for like Naga or Alchemist or something, maybe getting a Naga or a Beastmaster yourself is a better follow-up. But this is all leveraged on the idea of actually doing damage. Most importantly of that damage being lowering the Moonwell mana. Because if you're fighting his keeper, losing Footman, yeah, but his keeper's getting low and using a lot of mana, you're canceling lores, you're attacking wisps. The idea is that by this time, as we can see, it's daytime, and most of the time you're going to have an Arcane Sanctum up. You would have had 3 or 4 rifles by now. You would have a second hero. You would have Adept Priests. Then you push his base, and it's daytime. He's got no bears yet. No Master Bears, that is. And he's got no Moonwell mana. That's the idea behind this strategy. And that's the idea behind the aggressive playstyle behind the strategy. Hope that makes sense. But those are some ways it could have gone better. At this stage, I would say the game is pretty much over, because you're going to be forced into an expanding now, because there's no way you can push. So the only thing you can do is expand. Now the Sanctum's coming up, but yeah, it's a little rough. Because, like, as we see his tier 3 tech, by the time we would expand, he would already have bears. The game might go on a little while longer, but I just do not know. And maybe our opponent could make some mistakes letting us back in. I definitely wouldn't GG out at this stage of the game, because there's always opportunities to come back. And an expansion would be the best way to do that. And maybe our opponent overcommits, loses his Naga, maybe. We could definitely come back, but... So I wouldn't GG out here, certainly, but it's very difficult to come back at this stage. So our Sanctum's up. The best thing we can do is probably try to creep this with the MK, creep this with the MK, get an expansion up. BM meaning Beastmaster or Blood Mage? Because, yeah, they both are. Yeah, that's the Great Wall style. If you watch the Great Wall playing human against Night Elf, he does that all the time. It's very, very good. And then Blood Mage, of course, is very standard. Yeah, Beastmaster is like, it's an all-in strat, though. It's a tier 2 all-in strat. But it's very strong with this sort of level 3 aggression that I'm talking about, with the priority being lowering the Moonwell mana. Alright, so this is a mistake that actually kind of let us back into the game. The fact that our opponent's not going for just bears, instead going for mountain giants, might give us enough time to actually get this expansion up, but... Yeah, it's all about the low Moonwells. That's the main thing with this, with the one base, for sure.
A player's forces are under attack.
And note that, like, if, for instance, if we were playing against, like, Moon or something right now, what Moon would be doing is Moon would have a Staff of Teleportation on his Keeper, and note we don't have Adept yet on our Priests. Where is our Priest, anyway? We had one, didn't we? Regardless, we don't have Adept, right? No matter how we could have 10 Priests who don't have Adept. Moon would have a Staff of Teleportation on his Keeper. He'd be creeping with his Naga and everything, and he would come over here with level 2 Entangle, and he would kill one rifle after the next, while creeping with his Naga, while expanding, while going into bears. Which is why having Adept super early is very, very important, and this is also why it's important to buy a Staff of Teleportation for Night Elf players and to harass with your Keeper while you're solo creeping your second hero. Not too important, though, because we're not seeing it. Just worth noting that that is a potential play that could, like, further get this Night Elf player ahead. Just the power of level 2 Entangle. Still, I like this, though. This is aggressive creeping. You're really trying to get level 3 Mountain King. I think this is the best way for you to come back. You, of course, can't just sit in your base at this stage. You can't just creep greens. You have to creep aggressively. You get really good items, and you have to get an expansion up. So this is the right thing you're doing here. But as I've said, like, you're very far behind at this stage. But you're doing what you can right now. You're doing what you can. He's going to get 2 rifles. The funny thing is, he could get 2 rifles with just his Keeper at this stage as well, and keep creeping with the Naga. He could do everything he's doing right now with just a Keeper, simply because you don't have Adept on time. Because the Sanctum was forgotten about, and then, you know, a few other things. Hero focus is the only play. Yet again, I like the idea, you know, like, you realize I'm very behind, how can I possibly come back? And you're focusing the Naga, which is the best way to do it. Maybe focusing the Keeper would be a better option, but you're definitely not going to win the unit fight. I think, you know, calling the militia that you do have would be decent as well, but it's just been very tricky. It's been very tricky ever since the 3 rifle losses here, ever since you didn't actually get initial damage done economically. Because it's not important to like kill archers, it's important to delay the attack and to lower the Moonwall mana. The best way to lower the Moonwall mana is actually to not damage the archers, but damage the Keeper. Because the Keeper has mana, right? So trading with the Keeper and leaving the archers alone, and also, you know, delaying the Hunters all, delaying the lores, is what you want to be doing. Mortars would be nice, they would absolutely be nice, but I don't think we really have the economy this game, unfortunately. It is only a matter of time. The Night Elf has not scouted our expansion yet, which is something going well for us. So if the Night Elf were to, like, say the Night Elf backed up right now and went and crept a red or went and crept a lab, gave us some time, we could actually probably still win. Which again, I'll emphasize, which is why it's nice that we didn't GG after we just lost 3 rifles, right? We still stay in the game because there's still opportunity to come back. There always is. And like what the Night Elf is doing here is super good if this was just his Keeper. Either if he's pushing and trying to end the game right now, but what he's doing right now, he's waiting for reinforcements. But let's just notice that you could do this with only a Keeper as well, because he has a level 2 Entangle and the priests are out of position and don't even have Adept yet. So this whole army could be like creeping this right now. Or something. Well, the Keeper is doing just as much damage as the whole army's doing. And that's only because there's no Adept. That's the reason why. But the Night Elf is clearly trying to just end the game. Yeah, so the only option really here would be to call every militia, and I mean the gold peasants as well, and go for one last defense. If you do manage to defend, maybe you can get a supply advantage because you're 2 base against 1. But if you just fight in here before like you have your Mountain King and before like you call militia, it's not much of a shot. But like if you called like 8 militia, it'd be pretty good against the archers. Look how much damage he's doing. It's crazy. And that's going to be it. All right. Thank you for the submission. I hope that helped. It's difficult, right? But just, I'd say watch, honestly. It seems weird that I'm suggesting this, but watch some of the Great Walls replays against Night Elf. Because he has a very simple way, but like a really effective way of playing against Night Elf with these sort of one base all-ins. He also is very good at expanding, actually. I was very surprised. But the Great Wall, or even 15 Sway, they have very, I would say very simple, good ways of playing against Night Elf with both one base and expansion plays. But look for a game where they play one base and try to analyze some of those replays. In particular, what their creep routes are to get level 3, and also how they harass when they play aggressive with level 3 Archmage, what sort of things they focus on. And you'll find they're focusing a lot on doing damage to the Keeper to lower the Moonwells and delaying the lores so that their timing is more effective. Those would be the 2 players I'd recommend. And then, of course, all the top human players do this, but they're more likely to expand, which is why it's tougher to learn from them. And that's replay number 3. All right, I'm going to take a short break because I'm going to use the bathroom. I want to blow my nose again. I got the snifflies today. I'll be right back in a couple of minutes, and then we'll have replay number 4 and 5. All right, we're back. So we have 2 more replays left. We have replay number 4 from ptitgraig, who's an Orc player who's playing against human. He's 1300 MMR. And then we got replay number 5, which is going to be Cool Breeze, who's an Orc player as well, also against human. So this replay has a little bit of a write-up before it. It's like a paragraph. Let me read the paragraph. So he says, hey, nice nation. He says, hey, Carson, thanks for all your work with the community. No problem. I'm struggling as Orc versus Pala Rifle. I can't think of any good counter. My race against the strat is 0% win rate. Would you advise me on how to counter this? I watched the replay a couple of times, but they Excuse me. But the way the human plays makes it really hard to counter. Would love to see your comments on this replay on the TheoryCraft session. 1300 MMR, Gold, Silver League. Cool. Man, these are... you guys have sent in some tricky replays today, I'll tell you that. But, yeah, because definitely the thing with these sorts of strategies, which is similar to, like, playing one base against Night Elf and stuff like that as human, is there's not a lot of pros that are playing Pally rifles, right? You know, Miko did it in like one tournament and was very successful with it. But there's not a lot of like top level pros. And then the thing with like learning how to play against undead or playing undead against human with that pit lord push is the only person we can really learn from is like Happy, and Happy just wins fights that, you know, you can never dream of winning. So it's been a difficult day for that sort of a reason, but there is a good way to play against Pally rifles. I think the main thing is to not overcomplicate things. I'll be taking a lot from what I've seen Hitman do to counter this in this replay. And of course, there's different ideas. Focus counters it different from Lin, who counters it different from Fly, who counters it different from Hitman, who counters it different from Soen in a way. But I think Hitman has the simplest way of countering this, and I'll explain somewhat of how he does it, and we'll try to contrast what you're doing with what he does most typically against Pally rifles. It's definitely a difficult strategy to defeat. It's very, very difficult, especially as undeads, but also as an orc player, it's very hard to beat because it feels like you can just never win fights. So it really just comes down to like the first 8 to 10 minutes of the game, and then if you don't, not to say if you don't win in those early 8 to 10 minutes, you can't win at all, but like if you don't get ahead, it can be very difficult to actually win because the human player just outvalues you in a lot of ways. Oh, let me allow that, sorry. Thanks, Pepsi. All right, let's check it out. Here's replay number 4. This will be, we'll call him Greg, orc against human. Here we go. On Last Refuge as well. How's Grubby counter it? I don't actually know how Grubby counters it. All right, so, I mean, I would imagine Grubby counters it through building a lot of headhunters. Yeah, he probably builds a whole lot of headhunters. And of course, let's start off by saying we don't know what our opponent's going to do yet. This is what Greg can see, right? Nothing. Oh, he's got 4 on gold. What do you know? That's a replay bug. We don't know. So we have to do what's called like a flowchart, right? We have to have an initial build order that we do against all humans. And then we scout and we react, and then we change our build on the fly based on the information that we gain at certain stages of the game. So the best way to open, of course, against the widest range of human strategies is to play Farseer Headhunters. So I'd expect to see that. But then, of course, when we see Pally rifles, what's a good counter to rifles? Well, grunts with upgrades are typically the best counter, short of going Taurens, right? And it's hard to get to Taurens. It's hard to get there, so you're going to go open with Farseer Headhunters. When you see his Pally rifles, there's a good transition state where you have like 4 Headhunters, and then you start getting grunts. So I'd say that's a good way to do it. Get 4 Headhunters, you scout the Pally rifles, then you go into grunts after that, and then you're just going to go into pure grunt shaman. Nothing too fancy about it with upgrades. Let's see what happens, though. Of course, you're also going to be harassing the Paladin player. Similar to what we were talking about in the Undead Mirror, actually. Where you're not expecting to be able to kill units or get last hits or anything like that when you're harassing. What you can manage to do, though, is force the Paladin to use lots of his mana early on and also damage the Paladin. So now he's low health and low mana. What can he not do when he's low health and low mana? Well, he can't actually pressure you on tier 2. He can't also creep aggressively. So the whole point of the harass that we're going to see from Greg, as he sends the peon, again, this is just standard to deny the priest in a standard game. All good here. We're not going to see him. We're going to see him harass. We're not going to be able to like kill any rifles. We're not going to be able to kill the Paladin, but we will be able to force him to use Holy Lights, slow down his creeping, and damage the Paladin. That's going to be our goal. Is this actually? We won't talk about the gold order or whatever. I think it's going to be fine. Is this a fast tech?
Work complete.
It's not a fast tech. This is a little unoptimized, but nevertheless, I would say just watch a pro orc replay on Last Refuge and just copy their build exactly. They'll still do this peon. Oh, you're actually scouting with this peon. Okay. Yeah, I would say watch a pro orc versus human, like a top level, like Lin versus Chaemika or something, and just copy exactly what Lin does build order-wise here, because he's still going to send this peon. He's just going to send it up here, but we won't go over the super details of this build order, because overall it's still fine. Okay, at this stage we know it's Pally Rifles, because the hero should be out in a second, and also we see a blacksmith, so we know Pally Rifles. In most cases, though, of course, we're not going to have the scout peon. So we won't know until literally the Farseer's in the base, which is why I say you can just go 4 Headhunters and then into Grunts. There might be some dispute. Like I said, there's a lot of different styles against Pally Rifles, a lot of different opinions. In this case, it's fine. Now, creeping this Priest is the standard way to play against human. I don't think it's bad. And of course, the hero is going to be a little bit later, so I think this is fine. We have the time to creep just the priest, and then still make it over to harass the green camp. But, you know, in a lot of cases, you just want to get over there and start harassing the paladin. You do not want to give the paladin space to creep level 3, is what's most important. You do not want to let him creep level 3 for free, or else you're in a very rough position. So creeping this item, and then running immediately to creep Jack him here would be the best play. It looks like you're actually going down to creep the next priest, which I would call this too much space to the paladin, for sure. He's killing the peon. I don't think that's necessary for him to do, but whatever. Like, this is a cool idea, stealing away both priests, but now the paladin is going to get like 1.7 for free, which we don't want to have happen. You're actually going into Grunts right away, so you're skipping the Headhunters. The thing is, I don't think Headhunters are actually bad initially. Later on, they're of course bad against rifles because they outvalue you. Like, this might be a little bit confusing. You might be thinking like, oh, Headhunters are ranged and they have medium armor. Rifles are ranged and they have medium armor. Why are you saying that, you know, Headhunters are bad against rifles? Because then in that case, wouldn't rifles be bad against Headhunters? The reason I'm saying that is because, one, they get Devotion Aura, so they have more armor. 2, they have a range upgrade that they're able to get at tier 2, whereas you need to go tier 3 to get your upgrade. Hey, Todd gifted a sub to Insuf. Did he lose a bet? Thanks, Todd. Appreciate that. So what was that? So they have an upgrade at tier 2. Headhunters have an upgrade at tier 3, so rifles are stronger earlier on. 2, they have an aura. They have an armor aura, so they have just better. He lost a bet? Yeah. They have an armor aura, so they literally just have more tankiness. 3, they have Holy Light. So, and you don't have that. You're, of course, not going Shadow Hunter or anything, and they have Holy Light. So, already rifles are seeming a lot better, a lot tankier, a lot higher value than Headhunters will be no matter what. And then on top of that, they have a Blood Mage for infinite mana. They have Banish to save their rifles. They have a lot of things just to be able to outvalue. And by that, I mean, if you have a bunch of Headhunters, or if, say, I have a bunch of rifles, because let's say we're the human player, and you have a bunch of Headhunters, or I have a bunch of rifles, you have a bunch of Headhunters, and we just attack into each other, the human is going to win 100% of that time. Because they have more armor, they have more range, they have more healing, they have more sustain, and we don't have any of that. We don't have any of that unless we completely out-micro them, which we can't always count on completely out-microing our opponents. So rifles are just better than Headhunters in this case. So that's why we have to go Grunts, because we have to actually get a counter to the rifles, and we have to actually be able to overwhelm the paladin and overwhelm like the single target healing and the banish and all that stuff, which is why we go Grunts. He predicted... Oh, you predicted DreamHack, right? Wait, really? Which one? Asia? You predicted all of Asia, correct? I gotta check that. So that's why we go Grunts here. That's why we go Grunts. But I would say, to touch on the point again, the reason why a few Headhunters, 4 into 1 Grunt, is good is because we're not really at that point yet. The human doesn't have aura yet. They don't have a Blood Mage. They don't have range on their rifles yet. They don't have a ton of Holy Lights yet. And Headhunters can be really, really good at sort of poking into a base and like getting value from afar. Whereas if you only have like 1 Grunt, they can just kite the Grunt and then put a lot of damage on it initially. So grunts are actually much worse here than headhunters are initially. So going for like 4 headhunters into grunts is sort of the perfect balance of when the human is strong and when they're weak, and taking advantage of those things, if that sort of makes sense.
Players' forces are under attack.
But definitely the main mistake so far, regardless of the build order, regardless of what is better unit-wise, is giving the paladin way too much space. He's going to get level 2 for free, essentially. And even if we both get level 3, if the Farseer is level 3 and the Paladin's level 3, the Paladin is way happier than the Farseer. Way, way happier. But Farseer Torch Chief has Stomp and Aura, so isn't that an unfair comparison? Farseer's range with summons and Paladin is melee, so does it compensate? Definitely you could say the auras compensate for each other value-wise. Sure. But it's also just the fact that, like, if you're not landing money stomps, if you're not, like, if your wolves aren't being, or, like, are being ignored or something, or just being focused down, you know, it's just the fact that we don't really have healing, and they have, like, just higher value units. They're going to have more range, they're going to have more armor. And yes, we're going to have more move speed, and we're going to have faster attacks because of the aura. Yes, we're going to have AoE stun, we're going to have AoE chain lightning and stuff. But at the end of the day, they have a blood mage to siphon constant mana over to a paladin, and they also have healing. So if the fight drags on for longer than, say, 30, 40 seconds, the human's going to have units with high hit points left, and we're going to be, like, running away with 5 1 HP grunts. It just tends to be how the fights work out. So really, the healing and the siphon mana is more important than the auras. I just said the aura to sort of reinforce the point, but you're definitely right that both players will have auras to sort of counteract that. Yeah, you're right. I don't think I've ever seen Paladin first. There's something I'm missing. It's not too common at the highest level, but it's definitely a strong strategy. See, again, a lot of space given to the Paladin. A lot of space. Still going into grunts. That's good. So the ideal army for this is literally just grunt shaman with 2/2 upgrades on your grunts. You see a lot of people like focus, like fly. They like to go raiders. You might be asking why raiders. Well, for one, you can cancel the siphon mana and stuff, but ensnare can be canceled by banish. So it's kind of like going for raiders isn't really the best idea. Going for kodos, of course, are countered by the rifles. So you end up with this army where it's like the best thing to build is kind of just grunts and shamans with mass upgrades. Here, of course, we have to realize that we're not actually going to get any rifle kills, but what are we going to do? We're going to force him into Holy Lights. We're going to force his Paladin on low health. We're going to stop him from creeping level 3. We're going to do a lot of things that aren't exactly just killing units. And that's the point of harassing. That's the point of not giving the Paladin space. We're never expecting to actually kill rifles. It would take a massive mistake for a human player to lose a rifle in this situation. But now we notice we haven't really pressured the Paladin. He's close to level 3. He could probably, in theory, just creep a camp and get level 3. And then what do you know? He's very high hit points on his Paladin. He's got a lot of mana on his Paladin, especially once he gets level 3, he's going to be like 250 mana. Whereas if you harass him, you might force him down to like under 100 mana. And in that case, is he going to be able to just push your base? Probably not, because he's only going to have 1 Holy Light and he doesn't have a Blood Mage yet. Right? That's the point of the harass. And he would also, to touch on that point, probably not be 2.8 by now if we were pressuring him. Kind of a weird fight from the human, I'll say, but he's still in a pretty good spot because he has so much mana. Other rifles always goes Blood Mage second? Yeah, pretty much always. I mean, sometimes you'll see him go like Alchemist, but that's kind of bad. I'd say Blood Mage is just a better way to play. See, neither of you lost anything there, right? You didn't lose anything, but whose army looks better at this stage? Like, whose army would you rather have at this stage? You haven't lost any units yet. You both fought. and took damage. You both were forced into using mana. You both attacked each other. Whose army would you rather have? Would you rather have the Orc's army with all these low HP grunts? Or would you rather have the human with, yeah, a couple low HP units, but you're about to have a blood mage and you can just heal them up with level 2 Holy Light? This is why I talk about value. If we just both attack into each other and just both do damage to each other, the human player gets more value, and they're able to do that because we're just not, like, overwhelming them. And this is why we have to force them to use Holy Lights in the early game. This is why we have to keep them off level 3 so that we can win fights at this stage of the game. Yeah, it's all about having a lot of stuff, for sure. Because we're never going to win a even fight where, you know, I have, you know, 5 grunts and you have 7 rifles sort of thing, which is relatively an even army. Because they outvalue us, so we need to sort of overwhelm. We need to speed scroll in, get a stomp, get our grunts, pull peons, and just sort of overwhelm him so he can't heal everything and he can't just kite our army. If we're allowing him to just out-micro us like we are right now, it becomes very, very difficult. Which is why going raiders, trying to get fancy, getting Kodos, it's just not necessary because we just need meat. We just need meat. We just need grunts, we just need shamans. Nothing fancy at all. We need upgrades so that our grunts can stay in. I think this armor upgrade's a great choice, although attack upgrades might be better. There's a debate to be had there, though. See, and now we're in a position. We didn't pressure him. I'm going to unpause this so I don't get a siphon bug. We didn't pressure him. He crept 2.8. He walked across the map, took a fight, lowered all of our grunts, healed up his whole army because he has Siphon and he has Holy Light, and we're forced into trying to like salve up our grunts, and we're just trying to hold on. This wouldn't have been possible had we harassed him earlier. This is why we don't give space to a Paladin, because this ends up happening. Like, the human player here is playing really, really well. He's just pressuring, and the reason he's able to do this is because he was given so much space.
The player's forces are under attack.
And what have we gotten out of giving him space? Only level 2 Farseer. That's all we got out of it. Diamond 4 Bond King. Wow, man. You go, girl. Yeah, Surround on the Paladin's probably the best play here. But can Pally Rifle beat Farseer Headhunters? I don't know, Cruncher. I don't know if anything can. We're trying to focus the Paladin. I actually think the Pally player, Mr. President over here, didn't have to TP there. Didn't have to TP. See, and the whole thing is like we have to delay this sort of a fight. We can't have the human player being aggressive on us and sort of pushing into our base like that. We have to constantly pressure him. Delay as much as possible this level 3. Even though we've seen players like Chaemiko just push on level 2 and do the same thing, that's where, you know, forcing mana and keeping the rifles low as much as we can sort of stuff
A player's
is
forces
important.
are under attack.
This all just comes back to just creeping instead of harassing. That's what this all comes back to. Still, this is good though. Grunt, Shaman, armor upgrades, attack upgrades. Should be prioritizing getting like 2-2 as early as possible. I think there's a debate to be had about whether you should expand against Pally Rifles. I think Hitman expands very often against Pally Rifles. But really, you could just focus on getting like a big 50-60 supply army with 2-2 upgrades on the grunts. Because the thing about expanding against this is it leaves you open to him just all-inning your expansion. And then you're forced to defend it. Again, this whole time, your Farseer should be sort of on top of him. Why not go Tauren Bloodlust? Yeah, why not? 3/3 Taurens with Pulverize and Bloodlust. How about that? Yeah, like your Farseer, like it shouldn't matter. Your Farseer is going to be level 1. Your Farseer might even be 0 experience. The idea is your TC will creep level 3, and your Farseer is on top of him the entire time, delaying these sorts of pushes, delaying his creeping, all that sort of stuff. Your Farseer needs to be constantly harassing.
The town is is under siege.
And then you need to solo creep the TC. And ideally not be getting pushed this early by level 3 Paladin. Yeah, because this is like, I mean, it's kind of winnable. Like, how could we win this fight right now? We might be able to. We need to rebuild the shop that we just lost. We probably need to pull the boys. Of course, we got enough lumber to justify pulling the boys. We probably even could have early. Do we have a speed scroll? We don't have a speed scroll, which really sucks. If we did have a speed scroll, we could SS in, try to get a stomp, purge these 2 rifles that are out of position, and then maybe try to kill these 2 rifles, and then past that point, maybe if the peons come in, we could win the fight. Not having a speed scroll here, though, is kind of rough. It makes it very difficult to win this fight. Yeah, he's even got 2/2 upgrades as well, which is just crazy. But that's just because he simply hasn't lost anything. Like, he hasn't lost anything. He hasn't... Oh, no. He hasn't lost anything. He hasn't been forced into, like, calling militia unnecessarily. He hasn't been forced into, like, potions of healing, scrolls of regeneration, clarity potions. He hasn't even had to use a single clarity potion this game. He hasn't lost anything, taken any damage, and been forced into anything he didn't want. And because of this, he's 50 supply, with 2/2 upgrades, with an expansion coming up, and tier 3. And an army that we can't beat. No, don't worry. I checked the replays for those things, Blanky, before we watch them. So it's tricky, but it really all, again, comes down to we need to pressure the Paladin. We need to damage the Paladin, force the Paladin off of big creep camps to not allow him to be level 3 early on. Ideally, we want to keep him on level 2. We want to... force him into things like scrolls of regeneration, clarity potions, force him to call extra militia, not allow him to pressure your base to, you know, stop your TC from creeping and stuff like that. This all comes down to the harass, and, you know, it is made easier if you go 4 headhunters into grunts instead of just immediately going for grunts. Grunts are the right idea. Grunts are the end goal, but I think going 4 headhunters and then going into grunt shaman with 2/2 upgrades is probably the better way to play it, and then you can pressure much easier with 4 headhunters as opposed to like 1 or 2 grunts. Quick question, do we need to pressure the Paladin? Absolutely need to pressure the Paladin. I would say go watch, like, the funny thing is, though, the last like 6 games I've seen of Pally Rifles against Orc, the human kind of won every game, but that was Chaemiko against Lin and Fly. Go watch, like, Hitman play against this, and yes, he's going to be playing against players that he's much better than, but, like, for instance, if you go watch Hitman against Fish, Hitman does it pretty well, like the pressuring with the Farseer and creeping with the TC, and then eventually fighting. Thank you, OC Drummer, for the raid. Appreciate it. That's the thing about these strats, though. There's not a lot of top-tier replays from them. And honestly, a lot of the replays I've seen, the human beats the orc, and the orc looks a little bit lost. So it's a tricky strategy. But there are ways. It all comes down to the harass. Yeah, I wish there was more replays to study for this, but not a lot of humans play it. For some reason. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why more humans don't play this. They should play this strat more. Yeah, like, Paladin can't heal himself and you have no priests, although Chaemiko plays it with priests. But yeah, that's why pressuring the Paladin is good, because then it doesn't allow them to just... You can't allow them to just walk across the map and push your base. You can't allow that to happen. It's tricky, though. I would love to do an episode on Pally Rifles. I've actually actively looked for a lot of human days and orc days, looked for replays for Pally Rifles to go over, but I just haven't been able to find any. Chaemiko give mana to priest with BM? Yeah, he did. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's really tough. Give me some replays, though, because, you know, I would love to have more replays to learn from this style, because so many people ask about this strategy, and I'm like, okay, here's what I think, but I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. HKT? Oh, Human King Tom. Yeah, yeah. See, maybe like Human King Tom versus Hitman. I need those replays or something. Or like Thorzane replays. Thorzane against Hitman. I could probably contact Thorzane and get some of his replays. He doesn't play a lot though. He doesn't play a lot. I wish I had those Chaemiko replays, but that replay pack never got released, and I messaged the admins of the tournament, but they're like, no, we're not going to release the replays. So that was a bummer. So I couldn't get those. Those would have been great to study. Although Chaemiko did win 2-0-2-0, still just to see where the orcs maybe could improve on, because I'm not saying there's definitely huge ways the orc players that I'm seeing lose to the strat could improve on, especially like the pro orcs that I've noticed. Because they're trying to go like raiders, they're trying to play like hit and run and stuff. That's something I've seen Linguagua do, is try to play mass raider hit and run against pally rifles. Which wasn't really too successful. But more on that strat to come when there's more replays, I promise. Alright, replay number 5 is a cool one. I was excited about this one because this is actually a new player. He said, this will be Cool Breezes 2N. He's an orc player. He's playing against human in this replay. It's 1300 MMR. And he said, hi, started the game War 3 2 weeks ago. Here's an orc versus human game. I unfortunately have no idea how to play this matchup. I always lose late game. So I tried to go for a very aggressive push. Didn't work out, but I thought it was still in an okay spot. But then got crushed. Would love to see some feedback. 1300 MMR, 21-minute game. Also coming from StarCraft. I kind of need to spend my money. I kind of have the need to spend my money 24/7, but I tend to spend it in the wrong stuff, I guess. Cheers. So cool. So this guy's played for 2 weeks, and he's 1300 MMR. And he's a StarCraft player, which is why I was excited to do this. 2 weeks. Played for 2 weeks. Alright. Let's check it out. This will be the last replay for the day. And Orc against Human is an ever-developing matchup. Humans are doing different stuff now, which I love to see. The humans making some adjustments. It's nice. It's nice. The panda is looking good. It's looking spicy. Orcs are making some adjustments, but a lot of them are just kind of making headhunters still. Let's see what Cool Breeze does. Ah, okay. This is already interesting. Okay. So, the human player here is random. Random, which sucks. So the best way, we could talk about playing against random. Of course, Night Elf players, human players, undead players, they all scout, but what you can't predetermine against random with these 3 races is what hero you're going to go. So for Night Elf players, you can scout, yeah, but you don't know, am I going to go Keeper? Am I going to go Demon Hunter? Human players, you pretty much can just go Archmage. I think Human is probably the best race against random. Cruncher, what do you think? Unbiased. Is Human the best race against random? And then there's Undead, of course. You can't go, you have to go kind of Ted Fiends against random, but you can still scout and see what race you're up against. For Orc, a lot of the time you can't scout. You scout sometimes, like against Night Elf you scout. Against random you're forced to scout, but you can't decide whether or not to go Blade Master as though you're against Night Elf, or against Undead sometimes you want to go Blade, and of course against, or in Mir you want to go Blade, but of course against Human you always want to go Farseer. You do not want to go Blade Master against Human, which is why when you play against random as Orc, you're forced to go into Farseer in a way. So you're forced into play Farseer Headhunters. So for Orc, yeah, you kind of just play Farseer Headhunters against random. It works against every race. Definitely works. You could just build headers, but it's a little bit of a bummer when you're trying to learn the game, trying to play against random. That kind of sucks. But every race has their disadvantage when playing against random. Just for Orc, it kind of sucks the most. Because for me, I want to play Blade Master, for instance, against Night Elf. I don't want to play Farseer against Night Elf. I also like playing Blade Master against Undead and in Mir. Sometimes I'll play Farseer against Undead. But I definitely don't know how the hell to play Blade Master against Human. I didn't know how to do that when it was meta. So let's see what happens, but still just a little bit of a wacky start to it. But let's see. Maybe we'll just go Farseer Hunters regardless. So here's our opponent. screwing. Interesting. Is I don't know what this is. This was kind of a last-minute submission, so I didn't actually check this replay. I didn't check this replay at all. Sometimes I'll watch the replays at like 32 times speed. What the hell is going on? Okay. Okay. Okay, so Farseer Hunters, yeah, that is the kind of the way you're forced into playing as random. I would say just some initial starting points. This burrow is probably a bit too aggressive. I would prefer to see this burrow maybe right here. And then you see where your barracks is. You can put the burrow right behind here. It wouldn't be the perfect base build, but we definitely don't want our burrows out front. If you notice, the burrows have heavy armor. The altar, for instance, or I can't show the armor because it's constructing. But for instance, the farms, there we go, have fortified armor, so they're actually much tankier, which is why the farms can be out front, because they take a while to die. But the burrows having heavy armor die very, very quickly. So we want our burrows to be in the back of our base. That's very important for Orc. Typically, we'll put them like behind the barracks. So we'll put like 1 burrow here, 2 burrow here, 3 burrow here, something like that. But they'll always be behind the main bulk of our buildings. Okay, Farseer. Peon Scout as well, just to see what race it is. Yeah, this is different. This is a different strat for sure. Now, I said something earlier about towers in passing. But, like, let's think about this. Okay. So, let's go let's go to our point of view. So, we scout our opponent, right? Here's a hypothetical. We scout our opponent. Our opponent, we see, has no altar. They're just building towers. What do we do? What's the best thing to do? Do we, A, run to their side of the map and harass their base? They don't have a hero, they can't defend themselves. Do we do that? Do we B, panic? Or do we 3, play passive? What do we do? One? So you think we go aggressive on them? Now let's play this out. Let's play this out. And this is very typical, because often actually it won't be the human players doing this, it'll be the orc players doing this. Right? The orc players are going to be the pieces of shit massing towers, because orc players are just terrible people, right? We mass headhunters, we mass towers, we harass you with a blade master. Orc players are like, this most often will happen. Right? Leave. Number 4 is leave. Of course we could leave right away for sure. Good, good, good. Many different options. Now, the best thing to do is, often we're going to scout this. You know, we're going to scout a Night Elf. They have Mass Ancient Protectors, whatever. Now, they're investing into a ton of towers. What are towers good for? Well, towers are very good at defending your base. This is a general rule of thumb. They're good at defending your base, just like they're very good at defending an expansion. Sometimes you'll have a human player expand and they'll build like 16 towers. Right? They'll build like 16 towers at their expansion. Now, what does 16 guard towers cost you? I don't actually... Are they 100 gold? That's 1,600 gold, right? Whatever. An X amount of lumber. 800 lumber. It's a lot. Now, they can't creep for you, these towers, and they're only actually get value if you attack into them. That's the thing about static defense. If an orc player builds 6 watchtowers here and then attacks, and you just never attack into his base, he has essentially wasted all that golden lumber on the 6 guard towers. Somewhat. I mean, there's still the advantage that you're not attacking his base, but still, in general. So the best thing to do when your opponent's just going to mass towers like this is just ignore them. And just play as greedy as possible, because he's investing so much into static defense that that's not army, that's not an expansion, that's not a fast tech, that's not creeping speed. So just chill and just creep.
We're under attack.
C was the answer. Yeah, this is perfect. Just chill and creep. The peon could stick around, but like right now I don't know what the hell's going on. Like, I don't know. I can see the whole map and I don't know.
We're under attack.
But for now, we just continue to scout. What do we want to be continuing to scout for? Well, we want to see... And being a StarCraft player, you'll have no issue with this. But we want to see, like, what hero is he going, because we don't know yet. We want to see, is he teching or is he expanding? Of course, if our opponent's going to go for an expansion, then we would love to come over and harass it. We don't want to let him get a free expansion just because he's got 2 towers in his main base. So we want to continuously scout. So keeping this peon alive and close by would be great, sending wolves periodically. But if he's not doing anything crazy, like if he's not, like, expanding, if he's not, like, trying to creep, like, this camp, or, like, trying to creep a red with critters with a blood mage or something, then, you know, we can just be happy to just creep ourselves because our opponent isn't doing anything crazy and he's wasted gold on towers.
We're under attack!
Yeah, I don't know. This is like Pally Rifles with like 2 arcane towers. I don't know, man. And we're probably going to be level 3 before our opponent's hero creeps 1 camp. If we just power creep at this stage. This peon should have definitely stayed back there, though, because we don't have a lot of information. The last thing we want when we see our opponents playing weird cheeses like this is to be caught off guard. We want all the information in the world, because if you were to put the best player in the world, if you were to put Moon, Lin, Infi, Happy, 120 against this strat, and they see this, not even them with all their experience know what the hell's going on. Everyone's confused. I'm confused, you're confused, Moon is confused. So we need to continuously scout, because we don't want to get caught off guard. Who knows? Maybe this is the new meta we're playing against, but we just haven't seen it yet. We do not want to be caught off guard. We want to respect the strategy, no matter how stupid it looks. We want to respect it, and we want to continuously scout it and try to react to it as best we can. We don't want to, like Grubby yesterday. Anyone watching Grubby's stream yesterday? He tried a new strat against Night Elf where he fast techs with a Blade Master and goes into Headhunters. His opponent went for a second Ancient War, and Grubby went, oh, he's just tower rushing me. It should be easy to defend. Grubby lost to like an 1800 MMR elf player because he didn't respect the tower rush. Respect the weird strats. Always. Which is why that peon should stay back. But still, just creeping's good. Creeping's good. Got Moon confused. Success, absolutely. And I'm going to watch this from Mr. Cool Breeze's perspective, because I want to be as confused as he is. Because I could check his base right now and probably see what hero he's going, what units he's going, and maybe know. But I want to know at what point do we realize actually what's going on. And are we caught off guard by it? Still, I like the creeping, though. Like, creeping's good. Another way to do this as well, and this is great against Proto. By Proto, I mean mass towers with a solo hero. Stealing away camps from your opponent aggressively. So taking away this camp would be great. And then their heroes are never going to be allowed to creep anything because you've already taken all the creeps. And his hero's not even out yet. So this is great. So far, this is beautifully done. We're still a little bit confused as to what to do as a reaction. Still a little bit confused. Sending a wolf into his base right now would be a great choice. Yeah, we're getting our shop, we're getting our 3rd burrow, all is good. This burrow still might go down in the future, but for now it's fine. Pushing into his base right now would be a mistake. Just send the wolf and that would be perfect. Okay, we see a Mountain King. No need to fight here, just keep stealing away creep camps from him. Oh my god, that was a big clap.
Work complete.
See, like, if we think about how this is going to play out, he's probably going to creep this. So, like, what if we just take the shop away from him? And then what is he going to creep? He's going to have to call Militia to creep this or to creep this. And we'll be Farseer level 3 from taking his shop. He's going to be stuck on level 1 Mountain King. We're going to have level 2 Wolves. The game's pretty much going to be over. A mistake here would be trying to creep jack him at this green. Because then we, 1, won't be level 3. 2, he's probably going to kill a couple Headhunters. So I think just creeping the shop here would be an excellent choice for us. Realizing that the only thing he could creep would be his green, or call Militia and creep something big, in which we could use just a wolf to scout that.
Work complete.
We kill a rifle. Nicely done. Nicely done. There's a fountain open, so we send the back to the fountain.
Upgrade complete.
Yeah, people say, yeah. The theme today is low-level players like myself seem to not prioritize level 3 and overcommitting, for sure. But it's especially clear in games like this where the strat that we're against is so weird that it's difficult to know exactly what to do.
We're under attack!
You know, I almost kind of like the Shadowhunter second, because still we don't know what the hell's going on. So Shadowhunter second here is actually kind of cool, going for more of like a Starbuck style. I think it's fine, because Torn Chieftain is great in like standard games against Pally rifles. I mean, it's probably good against MK rifles still, but we're kind of in the dark, so like maybe getting a Shadowhunter and going tier 3 and continue to scout might not be a bad play, because who knows, is he teching Griffins? Against Griffins, we definitely don't want a TC, right? We prefer to have like a Shadowhunter than maybe a TC third or an Alchemist third, but Shadowhunter here I actually kind of like, because it's such a weird game. Sure, yeah, I think I'm down with it. I'm down with it. This is great. Again, one thing we've seriously been missing is we need to scout his base, and we need to follow his army around with a wolf. Now, I said this in the last replay as well, the aggression with just the Farseer, but it is a very important part of this matchup. We don't want to give the human too much space. Because who knows, is he creeping this right now? Maybe, we don't know. Let's see. Let's see what he's creeping. Oh, he noticed that this is gone. Okay. I'm still not going to check his base, though. See, this is almost we're a little bit too comfortable here, it feels like. And you're definitely in a good spot, like you're creeping. You're stealing away all the camps away from him, but the fact you're not scouting is making me a little bit nervous. Because how are we supposed to know exactly what units to go into now? We haven't scouted his base. We don't know, is it tier 3 tech? Is he going like Archmage second, 2 Arcane Sanctums? Is it just rifles? Of course, if it's just rifles, we actually can make just Headhunters work, because it's not Pally Blood Mage rifles. It's just a Mountain King. So if we get a heal scroll, we're actually in pretty good position to win that fight.
We're under attack!
Okay, we got Hex now, so looking for a fight's definitely not a bad choice. That rifle moving down tells me that he's probably here. And he actually already crept it. Holy hell. Holy Haven Glaven. Alright. Peons. Oh my god. Okay. Oh, so this is... Okay, so he actually says... I was in an okay spot, and then I got crushed. Wait, didn't he say something? I always lose late game, so I tried to go for a very aggressive push. Didn't work, but I thought I was in an okay spot. Oh, so this is... He's actually going for a tower rush. Now, I think you've done... everything. There are a couple small things up to this point, but I really think overall you've kind of played this game perfectly. It's a weird game, so it's hard to say. It's hard to say what like Lynn would have done so far that might have been a bit better, but the fact that like you crept this camp, I don't think you crept this orange, right? You maybe could have crept this, and then you came across the map and you stole away a camp aggressively. We knew he was going to get this all along, and then you stole another camp aggressively. You maybe could have had a wolf on top of him to deny him from getting this lab. But still, like, and then you killed 2 rifles out of position. You haven't lost anything yet. So you've pretty much played really well up to this point. You could just continue doing exactly what you're doing. And he's going to be stuck on, let's check his experience. He's going to be stuck on level 2. What's he going to do right now? If you have a wolf on top of him, you're going to see if he goes for any of these camps at the bottom, and then you can creep jack him because you have a Shadowhunter with what should be Hex, not Heal Wave here, it should be Hex. And you can creep jack him and actually win the fight with Hex and trade more efficiently, and you're going to have wolves to scout if he creeps anything. In the meantime, he's not going to be able to creep anything, and you can creep like intermediate camps, like you can creep like, you can pull this and maybe Hex creep it, you could like creep a fountain, and all the while you're getting further ahead. He's stuck on level 2 Mountain King. You're stealing away all the creep camps. He can't creep his first hero or his second hero. And you just tech to tier 3 and go into whatever units you need to counter his army eventually. What you shouldn't do here is definitely all in him, because you're already in such a nice spot. You can just keep doing exactly what you're doing. Because now you're enabling him to... We can notice this, but there's no way you would have known. He's actually teched very late. So he's invested a lot into early army and, you know, delayed the tech for this early army. What he's going to be able to do now is use this army and also call the militia use the towers that we already established we don't want to push into, because if we never attack into his base, these towers that he upgraded never get any value. And just continue to creep. Just continue to creep. We're playing exactly into his hands here by tower rushing him. And you should never really tower rush human players because of militia. Wow, he even has to scroll the beast. This is tough. We might be able to, like, kill some rifles here, but yeah, the militia come in. Level 3 on the Mountain King. He went bash clap even, too. That's kind of funny. And see, what could have been us just sort of winning every fight, not allowing him to creep, turns into us losing our whole army, and him actually only losing, what, 1 rifle here? He might lose 2. And now he's got all the map control in the world to maybe just get tier 2, get a Blood Mage out, and tier 2 expand. Yeah, Kiro, like, he could be microing a bit better, he could be kiting a bit more. That's not what's important here, I don't think, though. Yeah, probably TPing, but, like, the idea that we're even going for this push means that we don't, like, feel the need to TP, right? Hex here could have meant we maybe get a Mountain King kill, but we don't. See, and now, weirdly as it sounds, we're actually in, like, an even game. I don't think the human's, like, hugely ahead, but I think the game is, like, even now. I think it's even. Alright, so the push kind of continues because the Mountain King's so low. So maybe we have a shot to make this work. Reinforced defenses would be great. What's our lumber like? Our lumber's fine, so reinforced defenses would be a great choice at this stage. Assuming the thought in our head is still we want to continue this push. But see, yeah, militia is what makes this so difficult to do these sort of strats against human. Whereas against, like, Night Elf, for instance, if your opponent random Night Elf, I think this is a great choice of strategy. The only difference would be maybe Serpent Wards and the Shadow Hunter, but this is actually a really good strat against Night Elf if you're forced to go Farseer against a random player and then they random Night Elf. Just against human, maybe not. And typically in, like, standard Orc against human, when the Mountain King... Oh, we might actually kill it, though. Oh. We'll get it. Nice. In, like, standard... So now the game, again, might probably be pretty even. We might be slightly ahead now. In standard human against Orc, like, if the Mountain King hits level 5, that's a lot of the time the human's, like, win condition. Mountain King level 5. If it's not, like, Panda or Beastmaster or something second. Okay, he's going tier 3. That kind of gives us 2 options. We can either go tier 3 ourselves, or we can just go down, creep our expansion, and expand, and get, like, a Bestiary and a Spirit Lodge up. We're going to a Torn Totem. But based on the fact we just saw him go tier 3, going Torn Totem's kind of weird, because we'd expect him to, like, probably go into Griffins off of this. So just getting, like, a Bestiary for Raiders, Kodos, and eventually Bat Riders, and a Spirit Lodge for Shamans would probably be the best play. I suppose Walker's on top. You could even just skip the Torn Totem or Spirit Lodge overall and just go for a Bestiary. Yeah, definitely the macro slipped up for sure. We could have already had... I think the best thing to pair with this sort of a push would be just a Bestiary and to get, like, Raiders and a couple of... in a Kodo or 2 behind this. Or maybe just Shamans as well wouldn't be bad. Shamans would be more, of course, typical against an Archmage, but... Yeah, definitely, Yeah, and now we're also going into Grunts, but again, we saw the tier 3 tech, so, like, he has 2 options. He has 2 options here. He's either going to go into, like, Knights, or he's going to go into Griffins. Probably already building Griffin Aviaries, though, I'd have to guess. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe not. Like, he might just be going for, like, 3 upgraded rifles, which is the fun option, but most typically, if we see human players in this matchup go tier 3, it means Griffins. So transitioning now into Grunts, probably not the best option. We should instead be preparing like reinforced defenses, getting an expansion up, getting 2 bestiaries, preparing for the Griffins. But the main thing is we should be scouting consistently to see if there is Griffin aviaries. Because this is such a weird game, we want to know what the hell's going on. Okay, creeping the expansion, then maybe pulling a peon and going for a tier 2 expansion would be good. We can fight tier 3 human with tier 2 orc, we just need 2 bases. If you hear a baby in the background, it's because my family's visiting. Not sure if you can though. Okay, sorry, I had to blow my nose and sneeze, all that good stuff. So yeah, we're transitioning into grunts now. Like, this is a good army to transition into, say we're against, like, pally rifles or something. Like, skip the bestiary, maybe get shamans, but then transition into grunts after early game headhunters. But, like, in this stage, like, we're really playing into the Griffin tech switch. Yeah, Grunt Shaman, 2-2 upgrades, continuous pressure with the Farseer the entire game, Kiro. That's generally, that's the cliff notes for versus pally rifles. But overall, it's difficult to know because there's not a lot of replays to study for it. Okay, now we're going tier 3. That's good. That's good. And again, the one thing that's been really missing this whole game is consistent wolf scouting. What would we see if we looked into the base right now? Well, we'd see the human player is actually just chilling. He's gone for a pally. He hasn't gone for Griffin Aviaries, so our army might actually not end up being bad, but we kind of get lucky that it's going to actually be good in a way. Do we still have a town portal? We still have a town portal, so we don't got to worry about taking risks. We could definitely just have to like gobble up as much of the map as we possibly can. I think Blood Mage would be much better. I definitely agree that Blood Mage would be much better for the human here. So we're able to creep a lot of the map, but the problem probably is going to become that Mountain King getting level 5. Because yes, our heroes are going to be very good, but he's still going to get his crucial high-level hero, which is that Mountain King level 5. And yes, we're going to have like Shadow 3, but not really going to be the ideal counter for it. Okay, now we're going for a Spirit Lodge. Seems like you're a little bit confused on what army to get, and you would be much less confused if you were actually like scouting. But let's see, like, what if we were to scout his army right now? Okay, we don't know. He's getting a lumber mill. So we know it's just rifles. So, like, if we were to see it's just rifles, probably still going for just grunts and shamans would be the best bet. Or grunts and walkers is fine. But we also have to know, like, is there Griffin Aviaries coming up because he went tier 3? So, like, you know, it's tough to know exactly what army to go for. But, like, we don't really need to get all 3 of these. I would say consistently you can kind of just get shamans. You don't really need to go for walkers against human in general, I would say. Thanks, Fack. Yeah, dude. Like Grubby does, for instance. I'm sure a lot of humans do go for a Torn Totem. But I'd say overall, just because there's so many different build orders that the human could be going into, I'd say overall shamans are probably just a safer bet from the get-go. Okay, good. We're clearing for the expansion. And again, going for like an expansion after that initial push would have not been a bad play. Again, he's really giving us a lot to creep, isn't he? He's probably creeping this red right now. Yeah. We should on paper. Like, I'm just wondering how you actually lose this game. Because on paper we should, like, we're going to have Farseer level 5. we definitely need to get, because we already know his Mountain King's level 4 with Clap, right? And we know he's probably going to get level 5 Mountain King, so we definitely want like 2 or 3 heal scrolls by the time we fight. But we should, on paper, just really destroy in this fight. So I'm interested to see what goes wrong here.
Upgrade complete.
Tier 3 hits. What should we get on Tier 3? We can, of course, get Kodo upgrades. We could get like a TC third. Would TC third be the best? Yeah, TC third would be the best for sure. So we can get a TC third. Kodo upgrades, of course, Bloodlust. But the thing is, it's so tricky to get Bloodlust because now we have Walkers as well. Whereas if we had gone Shamans off the get-go, we would have 4 or 5 Shamans, maybe 4 Shamans by now, and we'd just be able to get Bloodlust right at Tier 3, which would make us completely destroy a Rifle army. Right, like Bloodlust just completely stomps it. Whereas now we're sort of stuck in between 2 different techs, which is, do we go for the Walker Tauren route, or do we go for the Bloodlust route? What do we go for? Whereas I would say the Bloodlust route is more consistent and better, but now we're kind of stuck because we were confused initially on what to go for. Okay, we're going to get level 5 Carson, which in a lot of cases against this sort of army should just totally destroy it. And like level 3 wolves, again, scouting. I don't think we've actually scouted with a wolf once this game. I don't think we have one. Very, very important for the CORSAIR. So, Lost Prey, terrible. Shadow Hunters looking pretty good though. Yeah, MK level 5 is gonna do work. That's why heal scrolls should be on our mind right now. Just in general against Panda or Mountain King, heal scrolls should always be on our mind. I see a Dark Ranger here. Yeah, TC is the standard choice. I mean, if we're thinking about like the Starbucks style, where he goes Shadow Hunter second, he always goes TC third. Yeah, see these burrows now, if they were in the back of the base, there'd be nothing exposed. See, he's going to kill this burrow, no problem, which is why they should be in the back of the base. Still totally a winnable fight for us. The positioning is not the greatest, though. This Kodo needs to eat. Actually, he staffed it out as we were about to eat. Oh, the Mountain King actually dies. That's incredible. Level 3 wolves should always be in worker line. Let's see if is the base blocked? No, yeah, so that's a good point. When you get level 3 wolves, or even when you get level 2 wolves, let's say that, and you've had level 2 wolves for a long time, and you weren't actually using them to creep with, right? So there's no reason for you to not, once you hit level 3 Farseer, because his base is open, his base is not blocked, and here's the Griffin Aviary, by the way, to not just constantly send wolves in here. Either send them to scout, right? Send them to scout, where is he expanding, what's he creeping, or just constantly send them into the peon line. And by now, you probably, like you see, he's 2,900 right now, you're 2,900, he would probably be something like 4K. And you'd be 2,900. Just by sending wolves over and over again. And that's even more important when you hit level 5, because level 3 wolves will just... level 3 wolves will literally come in here and kill every single peasant on their own. Within like 2 rounds of wolves. They're so strong. But they're also really good in the fight. See, like, our army's pretty ragtag, which is why this is more difficult than it should be. If we just had, like, you know, Grunt Shaman here with Bloodlust, and maybe, like, a Kodo behind it, it would be a lot simpler. But instead we have, like, Walkers, we have a Spirit Lodge that's building a couple Shamans now. We built a few too many Headhunters, we have one Walker kind of chilling. Like, our army makes it kind of difficult for us to win these fights. I mean, this Walker staying in Ethereal form actually isn't too bad, because Walkers, it's the same thing when you play against, like, Frag Sharp Mortar teams. You'll often keep them in Ethereal form. But yeah, like, you could definitely... Walkers have pretty high damage. It's good to keep this at Ethereal form. Okay, now the expansion comes up. But since you're on Tier 3, you should almost always go for the Pocket expansion from your shop. Almost always, because you actually... This expansion takes 2 minutes and 30 seconds to build. So you get, let's do the math here. You get 10 gold per second. It takes 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so that's 150 seconds. Right? 150 seconds. So that's actually, if we add a 0 onto that, that's 1,500 gold we get in that time that we would have got if that expansion was mining. Whereas a Tiny Great Hall, let's say it takes 30 seconds. So let's minus 300 gold from that. So 1,200 gold. So that's actually 1,200 gold that we could potentially mine from that expansion if we were to get a Tiny Great Hall instead of a slow expansion. And the Tiny Great Hall only costs about 220 more gold. Something around there. So we actually overall get close to 1,000 gold from just getting the Tiny Great Hall as opposed to slow expanding. Just because we would have been mining from that expo quicker. That math might not be entirely right, but it's something like that. It's something like that. Yeah, he didn't use Spirit Link in the fight, but I think it was just a matter of this army. There's just so much going on. You need to Devour with the Kodo. You need to Purge with the Shamans, cast Lightning Shield. You need to get your Grunts on the Rifles. You need a Spirit Link. You need a Heal Wave. You need a Chain Lightning. You need to do so much with this army, which is why I always advocate for just simple armies. Grunt, Shaman, Grunt, Shaman, Grunt, Shaman. And then once they go Griffins, 2 Beast Bat Riders, right? And you should know this because you should be scouting with the Wolves consistently. And likely to be less cancer, for sure. Yeah. And less likely to be cancer, yes. Vulnerability. Like, see, this whole time this is constructing, it could actually be mining. That's where that difference in gold comes from, right? Going for Taurens, good against rifles, bad against the Griffins that we don't actually know about. Typically, when we go for casters as well, we'll go for 2 of whatever caster we want to go for. Then we'll go for Adept upgrade. So we normally get 2 walkers, then we get Adept, or we get 2 shamans, then we get Adept. And then generally you'll have that by the time you're tier 3. You'll have about 3 or 4 shamans. Then you'll get masters as soon as you hit tier 3. It's typically how we upgrade casters.
Our gold mine is running low.
Is the Mountain King level 5? Not yet. So still I'm in a position where I'm like, I don't know how we may lose this game. Because we've been in a pretty good spot the whole game. Like, the biggest error, of course, was just... Well, one, our army composition's been a little bit wacky, right? But the main thing was going for this big push, and maybe not expanding earlier. But other than that, like, this has been pretty good. Yeah, 3/3 upgrades on the rifles, yeah. Yeah, heal scrolls should be something we should really be thinking about. Like, I would even have probably 4 heal scrolls right here. If possible. Of course, you can't just have that because you need the gold for it, but, like, pretty soon. One other thing we like to do in Warcraft, you know this probably from StarCraft, transferring, like, drones over or something. As soon as your expansion's up, just transfer 5 of your lumber peons. Right away to the expansion. And you notice your lumber's totally fine, so you actually could have done this. Just transfer it, and then you're mining right away, because, again, this is all gold being lost. The big thing here is just sending wolves. Like, sending wolves, disrupt his mining, stop a potential expansion, scout where he is. Okay, you're sending 2. Yeah, that's good. Like, even if our army isn't, like, optimal, we should still be able to just kind of win the fight. Like, the only thing that goes wrong is we don't have at least 1 more heal scroll. We also don't have a town portal. Ah, we don't have a town portal. Right.
We're under attack.
So he's going to kill the expansion, town portal back, and we're probably going to lose the fight. Unfortunate. Again, if we had Tiny Great Hold, we actually would have already mined, like, 1,200 gold off this gold mine. Something around there. It would have already paid for itself, and then some, by this time.
Our town is under attack.
Yeah, we got Berserkers. When he town portals, we need to be aware that we don't want to eat thunderclaps. We want to not have our army clumped up. Ooh, we don't have a TP either. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, no. If we had a TP right here, this actually wouldn't be bad because we almost killed every peasant. In fact, we did kill every peasant except for these two. So imagine we just TP away, buy a tiny Great Hall, which we have the gold for, and he actually doesn't have any peasants. Yeah, so if we had a TP here, we actually do win, I think. This is just community replay submissions. Yeah, so say we TP out here, this actually isn't too bad. We have an army that could maybe fight. We get a tiny Great Hall. So there's a lot of things that, like, maybe could have been changed this game. But overall, I think, like, you did a lot of things right in this game, for sure. It's just unfortunate to not have a TP in the end. But, like, let's talk about, like, the perfect way to have played this game, right? Okay, I'll pause because we're about to, the game's about to be over. The perfect way to have played this game would be, let's go back to the start, right? I don't even think the Shaman's had Adept yet, Armin. So, we're going to scout his base, right? We're going to see he's towering up. He doesn't have a tower. Okay, he's investing in towers, not into creeping or attack or expansion, so we just creep. We can creep this, then we creep this, then we can run across to his side, steal away this camp. If he allows us to steal away this camp, if not, we creep this shop. We're level 3 Farseer. We go Shadowhunter just like you did, tech to tier 3. And we can just go, like, we can either go Headhunter Shaman or Grunt Shaman, either or, while we tech to tier 3. Harass with Headhunter Shaman, Headhunter Grunt, Farseer level 3, and Shadowhunter. Stop him from creeping anything. Because, again, we have Hex. We're going to be able to creep jack him if he creeps here. We're going to be able to creep jack him if he creeps here. Just constantly creep jack him with the Wolf Scouts that we have, while also stealing away camps from him. Eventually, we're tier 3. When we're tier 3, we can get Berserkers for our Headhunters. We can also get Bloodlust. We can get a Torn Chieftain 3rd. We can continue to play this way where we bully him off creep camps and creep everything around his base so he's stuck on Mountain King level 2. And then eventually when we're forced back home, maybe we have to Town Portal, we get Bolt Surrounded, whatever. We're tier 3, we get a tiny Great Hall. We expand. We continuously scout his tech with Wolves. If he goes Griffins, we can react with 2 Bestiary Bat Riders. If he goes pure Rifles, we can just go upgraded Grunts with Mass Shaman, or Grunts and Shamans, not Mass Shamans. If he expands, we can harass with Wolves. If he doesn't expand, we can still harass with Wolves, but most important to scout with them. And that's about it. But pretty much the creeping you did, the pressure you did was good, and up until the point where you tower rushed. Yeah. That's about it. There's a lot going on in that game. There's a lot to say. It was a very weird strategy from the human, but I hope that helped. And man, for playing 2 weeks, you're real good. So keep playing, and maybe submit a replay next month, and we'll see your progress, sort of thing. Because that's, yeah, you're 1300 MMR, and you're playing pretty well. You just seem to not have like the perfect grasp of what army composition to get, or sort of how to transition into the late game, which is paired with the army compositions. But the main thing is, just keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate things. You don't need multiple casters. You can just go Shamans, for instance. You don't need to go into, like, Taurens. You can just be happy with, you know, Headhunter, Grunt, Shaman, maybe a Kodo in the back. Nothing too crazy. Yeah, that was really good for 2 weeks. All right. And that's it. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry, it was a little bit sniffly and sneezy today, but that is how things go as we transition the seasons. So it's not the easiest to do analysis when you're trying to not sneeze the whole time. One more replay? I can't. I'm sorry. I got family over. I gotta go say hello to them. But, yeah, that was fun. Thank you, guys. I always really enjoy these episodes. Next week is going to be Undead Day. We're going to have much more replays. Maybe Undead against Farseer Headhunters, Undead against Pally Rifles. I don't know what, but we're going to have plenty of Undead replays to go over. I'll make sure it's a good one for you guys, because, of course, I kind of skipped you guys last week. So that's what will be next week. And, for now, like, just if you guys want to submit replays, you can submit them early. Like, for instance, the first replay we went over today was submitted, like, it was literally submitted the day of last month's community replay review. So don't think you got to submit them last minute or whatever. Submit them as early as you want, and I'll make sure to see them. If your replay didn't get shown today and you submitted it, poke me on Discord and be like, yo, you missed my replay, or, you know, send me another one, whatever. So that's that. So that's that. Thanks, Rick. All right. And we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your week. And if you're watching Warcraft this weekend, we got War 3 Champions on all through the weekend. I'll get up at 5 a.m. tomorrow and cast War 3 Champions, and then I get to get up at 3 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. How fun is that? How fun is that? Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Of course, shout out to the sponsor, CORSAIR, !CORSAIR. You can use the coupon code Back to Warcraft for 10% off at checkout. You can combine that with their weekly deals, which is up to 40%. You can slap those together, 50% off items like these headphones, items like this keyboard, items like the mouse, whatever you want. They got plenty of stuff. They got computer parts. They got heat sinks. Incredible. And of course, also shout out to our patrons. The 500 euro Golden Goat patron, Knebi Quakes, as always, thank you very much. The 50 euro Midas tier patrons, Toxie, Grinchy, JGats123, Enpadroot, Save Orcas, Scription, and Teggy, and our 25 euro Profit tier patrons, Burning Blades, saw you in here today. What's up, bud? Dondalare, KMS3D, and a new one from during this stream. We got Oscar. Thank you, Oscar. Appreciate you. And we'll see you guys next week or tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.